Testing 1 2 3 4 5.
Testing 1 2 3 4 5.
Testing 1 2 3.
Testing.
On top of the situation, you can go ahead and knock your damn self out there. LP, Kenny Pickett, go your heart. Brother Blow.
Introducing the new piece of rock car, made of stainless steel with a new carbon back.
yourself on out now. They do what you wanna do. Come on, do what you wanna do. Yeah, yeah, do what you wanna do. Go on and knock, 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 knock.
Broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., this is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Your weekly, proudly liberal,
Progressive, liberal.
whatever word you want to use, perpetuation of progressive talk entitlement.
No rhetoric divorced from reality here.
No skim
If you
milk.
want that, go over and see David Gregory.
Yes, no skim milk liberals allowed.
Indeed.
Yes. Good morning. Hope everybody out there is having a wonderful morning, and thank you for hanging out with us wherever you may be. SoFlo Radio, We Act Radio, or hanging out in the chat room over at talkingleft.com. We have a big, fun show in store for you guys today.
The government's open.
The government's open. People are still kind of suffering from it.
I'm sorry, I didn't see any of that around. What do you...
You must have been watching
Come on, it was
Fox.
just a slim down. It was a tiny little slim down. And see, we don't need government anyway. I told you, Daniel. I told you. See?
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
It was, he slimmed down for a little bit, and who cares? Move along. It's fine.
Yeah. We have David Bender, political director of Progressive Voices, coming up. Progressive Voices on TuneIn, and of course, progressivevoices.com. Our weekly awesome congressional check-in with Justin Duckham of the Talk Radio News Service.
Yes, we'll ask the question, how much does it cost to keep the Speaker of the House job?
Right.
A lot. It's a lot. And what else could you buy for it? Really good stuff.
A lot of good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Stuff that we need and stuff.
Yes. And Farron Cousins, producer of the Ring of Fire radio show and TV show, and the editor of Trial Lawyer magazine, and he has the best Twitter handle on earth.
Fair and balanced.
Yes.
Farron. balance.
Yes. Having fun on Twitter and mocking Fox News.
Come on.
Bonus.
Absolutely.
Yes. But as usual, we like to start off with the news that you may have missed or that we think needs a little bit more attention. And Shane, I picked this first story just for you.
Oh, goody.
Yes, because it's one of your favorite places in one of your favorite towns.
Oh, I think I know this story. It
Yes.
is. I got to take you there. We've got to go visit.
In all the hubbub about whether or not we should raise the minimum wage and treat workers fairly, Paul Saginaw, owner of Ann Arbor's iconic Zingerman's Deli.
Zingerman's Deli, best deli in the world. I mean, incredible. I mean, when you go to Ann Arbor, you have to go to Zingerman's.
Yes.
You must go to Zingerman's. It's down this back street.
And Ann Arbor
It is.
is one of your favorite places on earth.
It is. Go Blue.
Yes. And Zingerman's is your
Oh,
favorite deli.
it's just, you can't even, oh my God, corned beef. Oh.
Well, Paul Saginaw,
Can we go now?
no.
Okay.
Paul Saginaw essentially wrote a great op-ed for the Detroit News.
Is his name Saginaw or Saginaw?
I don't know. Saginaw.
Is it AW?
It's a AW.
Because that's a town in Michigan. Saginaw, Michigan.
See, I'm.
That's pretty cool.
Okay. He wrote a great op-ed for the Detroit News, coming out in favor of raising the federal minimum wage and
In the Detroit News or the Detroit Free Press?
the Detroit News,
Wow.
and
It's a pretty conservative paper.
and giving employees benefits. I could read this whole thing because it really is just so wonderfully written, but we don't have time, so I'll just pick a few of my favorite lines. He starts it off by saying, "It is a cruel irony that many of the 13 million men and women who produce and serve the food in my industry are forced to use food stamps to feed themselves and their family."
Indeed.
Cruel irony, he says. In the absence of meaningful action from industry groups like the National Restaurant Association to alleviate this crisis, I believe, as a restaurant owner and food service entrepreneur, we need to raise the federal minimum wage now.
And in the restaurant business, of course, people who have worked in it, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have,
Yes.
it's not even minimum wage. It's below minimum wage. It's crumbs. And if you don't get tips, well, to heck with you.
Well, Zingerman's pays a living wage.
You better believe
And
it does.
they want to continue to
They are-
increase their
they are-
wage.
You go in there, they are some hippies. In there.
Yes.
I mean, all free. I mean, it's all in everything is organic and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, of course, it's not for vegans, but it's
Hey.
I cannot recommend this place enough.
I sussed that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says, our success at Zingerman's with over 30 years of operating and opening food-related businesses was not achieved by underpaying or withholding benefits from our employees.
Mm.
So Zingerman's, along with many other great restaurants, including DC's Busboy and Poets right here in DC,
Yeah.
have started their own restaurant association.
Good for them.
Yes. And it's called Raise. Yes. How awesome is
Brilliant.
that? This new restaurant association.
Do we know what RAISE stands for?
I don't. It's obviously an acronym, but he doesn't spell it out in his op-ed here. But they are committed to the quote-unquote high road approach of labor practices, paying a living wage, making sure their employees have benefits, and continuing to increase to what they call a thrivable level of all
Huh.
wages. I love that quote.
Restaurants advancing industry standards in employment.
Right.
That is what RAISE stands for.
Right. He says a living wage is a path to a living economy and the antidote to the current suicide economy trajectory we find ourselves on.
And I got to tell you, the price of the sandwiches at Zingerman's, you need a livable wage.
Are they expensive?
Yeah. Well, it's worth it though. It's
Yeah.
it's higher end.
But he goes on to, hypothesize that paying this living wage will only increase his business.
But once upon a time, employees were part of a business. They were the lifeblood of a business, and that was the mentality of
Right.
owners of businesses, that they were just as important, if not more important, than the owners themselves. That without those people, my business would not survive. Now you've got a mentality of, hey, you want a job? Maybe I'll give it to you, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll pay you something. And if you don't want it, there's 1,000 other people out there who want it, so I'm going to treat you like crap.
Pretty much.
And it does not, you're going to end up with employees that don't have pride, that don't care about the business. Wouldn't you much rather have someone who loves coming to work and respects you and there's a mutual respect and enjoys it and does it well? I mean, it just makes no sense.
Well, in this day and age, he also, makes the argument that customers have voted with their wallets. They want organic produce. They want
Sure.
locally, sourced vegetables, locally sourced foods. They want good business practices, just like they want healthy food. And he says, and I agree with him, that you can argue all day long that increasing these wages might increase prices. And he says, yeah, it might increase prices just slightly. But I know that customers will choose to patronize our businesses because they know that we treat our employees fairly. And I personally, I agree. DC, Busboys and Poets, great, awesome place. They do work with We Act Radio, where we're on right now, all the time.
Right.
These are businesses that say, we're going to be better than the standard. We're going to prove that we can still
And
be
it's success that
successful.
feeds itself.
Right.
No pun intended.
Look at all this free airtime they're getting. Nobody's paying us to say this, but I'm celebrating the fact that they're treating people well.
Right. And they're sticking their thumb in the eye of the Restaurant Association, which is essentially the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for McDonald's and, Subway, Applebee's. I don't know for a fact that those restaurants are part of it, but I have a good feeling that it's the same ones who said, Obamacare is going to bring us down, so we're going to, cut all of our workers.
Right. So I think it's awesome. And he wrote that before this new research study came out from the University of California, Berkeley. Okay, all you conservatives, yes, it's the hippy-dippy Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
But they did a little analysis about how much these low wages cost our nation.
Right, because there's been a lot of studies about what Walmart costs.
Right.
Walmart costs a lot of money because, one, there's the taxes. They always come in and say, we don't want to pay property taxes for the first 10 years.
Right.
2, we are going to have employees that are, essentially poverty level, so they've got to go apply for food stamps, Medicaid.
One 300-employee Walmart supercenter gets $1 million a year in public benefits.
So, in other words, taxpayer money is going into the Walton Ayers
Right, that's
pockets
just Walmart. But
in order to keep people alive enough to come in and work at their cruddy jobs at Walmart.
Right, but when these researchers at University of California put this all together and they added up, what people are getting in food stamps, in earned income tax credits, in temporary assistance for needy families, and all of these programs
together.
together.
About for restaurants.
Right. These are just low-wage employees in general.
Okay.
$243 billion a year out of the pockets of taxpayers.
So that's a direct transfer of wealth. When conservatives complain about transferring wealth, they're taking that from the basic John Q taxpayer and giving it to the wealthy business owners.
Yes.
That is a transfer of wealth. That is a transfer of wealth that's actually been going on.
Right. And as Center for American Progress points out, if anything, this study, this huge number, may actually underestimate the cost of this because there's some programs that supplement a family's income that simply can't be factored in here.
Wow.
Food, what are they? Food,
Stamps?
Food closet.
You're talking about when you go to the
food banks. It's morning.
Good morning.
Yes. Educational programs, training programs. There are other indirect forms of public assistance that they can't calculate.
Things that the government does?
Things that the government does and things that taxpayers do. But
whatever the government does, taxpayers do.
Right, but I mean individually. Like you donate to a food bank or, you volunteer your time.
So outside of the income taxes you pay, there's other things.
Right. So it's even more than this. I mean, we're going to be talking a lot today about the government shutdown and how much it costs, $24 billion. Well, how many of those fits into this $240 billion that we're giving them a year, that we're giving these big corporate companies?
They're going to get all that anyways.
Right. But think of what we could do with
If they talk about
$250 billion.
They talk about waste, fraud, and abuse.
Right. Think.
There we can start.
Republicans won't approve President Obama's $51 billion infrastructure program.
Which would create lots of jobs that then we would have less people on public assistance.
Right.
Success feeding
Think
itself.
of how much infrastructure you could pay for with $243 billion.
That's a lot of infrastructure.
It is.
Although
So,
51 isn't that enough.
It's
not enough. 51's not enough.
I agree. It just goes to show that when businesses like Zingerman's, like DC Busboys and Poets come out and say, you know what, I'm going to break the norm and I'm going to pay my employees well and prove that I can still be successful.
And where are the best employees then going to flock?
Exactly. Where are the best customers going to flock? Customers that want to repeatedly patronize your business.
Right.
Just saying.
There you go.
It's all connected. In other really awesome news, New Jersey Supreme Court has accepted same-sex marriages this week.
Well, what happened is the lower court you can go ahead with this because it's to not do so is violation of equal protection. The
Right.
Supreme Court said we're not going to overrule that.
The Supreme Court said that. And same-sex marriages have begun. Now, of course,
Have
Governor...
they?
Yes.
Or is it midnight tonight?
No, they started Friday, I believe.
I thought for some reason they started midnight Sunday. But
Well, this
perhaps
is
I'm wrong.
according to MSN, so we'll see.
No, yeah.
But, of course, Governor Chris Christie, future presidential candidate
Yeah,
Chris Christie.
how does he thread that, Neil? I want to run for president soon, but I got to run for governor now. I got to get the Republican nomination, but at the same time, how am I going to do this? How does he do it?
Just by sitting on both sides of the fence whenever he can, and he,
Yeah, careful. We're not going.
everybody knows what we're thinking.
There's
right
plenty
there.
to go after him on other
Yes.
than that one.
And but same-sex couples, go equality, are starting to
Yeah.
be able to marry who they love in New Jersey, and North Carolina is not far behind.
No, what?
Yes,
North Carolina, home of the worst voter ID law in the.
according to some local officials there.
I wonder if you can bring your marriage license in for your voter ID.
Drew Reisinger. That would be awesome. Yes, we do have the same last name.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do live at the same address, and we're gay.
Now let me
Awesome.
vote.
Yes. Drew Reisinger, one of the county register of deeds, has started issuing marriage applications. Now,
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
yes, now the Attorney General, Roy Cooper, supports marriage equality, but he's openly a Democrat, but he says he has to,
Openly a Democrat in North Carolina. That's
Yeah.
scary.
but he says he has to uphold the state's
Of course he does.
discriminatory ban on same-sex marriages. But these fine gentlemen think that the law will eventually, if not quickly, be overturned,
There you go.
being found
Let's
unconstitutional.
plan ahead. Let's plan ahead.
Let's get people in line.
There
Let's
you
get
go.
the process started. And so, yay for marriage equality in 2 more states.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, we are kicking butt and taking names and saying that everybody in our country should have the right to marry who they love.
And then when that happens, it's very difficult to undo that. We're going to go unmarry you. And on top of it, all the straight people who are worried that it's going to destroy their marriage, unless they're gay, it doesn't destroy their marriage.
Right.
And then wait a minute. I have no argument left. You never had an argument in the first place.
Exactly.
But proof.
Anything that continues to fight towards equality for women, for minorities, for same-sex couples, that is something we
For
need
human
to
peoples.
Yes, that is something we need to celebrate. And so, yay for
You
New
were so
Jersey.
optimistic this morning.
I am. Maybe it's because we went and saw Lee Camp last night.
Oh, yes.
Although it's hard to be optimistic after you hear a Lee Camp comedy show.
No, you can be optimistic. Just because he points out what's wrong doesn't mean that he doesn't believe that there's a way to make it right.
Yes.
There's a lot wrong.
Special thanks to Lee Camp for
Oh.
putting on an amazing comedy show here in D.C. One of those shows where you learn something
Yeah,
and you laugh your butt off.
Audience was packed. It was
Yes.
a great venue. And we ran into some friends,
Yes.
which was cool.
It's funny. You go to a Lee Camp show, you run into all those, commie socialist liberals that
Yeah.
hang out around town.
There were some people in the audience that weren't commie socialist liberals,
Yeah,
and they're a little frumpy.
They didn't seem to
Little
care
grumpy.
for Lee Camp's.
Why is he yelling at me? Why is he yelling at me? I want to go watch Dancing with the Stars. This isn't fun.
No, Lee did an amazing job. And,
A lot of energy, boy.
Yes,
How
his
he
mind
puts those
works
rants
so fast.
How he puts those rants together. I mean, of course, check out Moment of Clarity, and you'll
Right.
see what we're talking about.
Yes,
So.
but check his website, leecamp.net. See when he's coming to an area.
He performs a lot.
Yes, and he is back in the States. He was on tour overseas for a while, so
Yeah.
he is back in the States putting on amazing comedy shows, and it was really affordable to
Yeah,
go
it
see him.
was. It was.
So look
It was
to see
great.
when he's
And
coming to your
he does
area.
a long act.
Yeah, it's like an hour and a half.
Considering the amount of energy, the opening guy was great too. I wish I could remember his name. I feel so bad. I'm gonna look it up, but
You were awesome, opening guy. You were really funny too.
well, I'm just known as sidekick around here. So
Yeah.
it's Danielle and that other guy.
One more good story before we have to run to a break.
All right.
Do you remember back a few months ago, may even have been last year, when Apple got busted for not paying any taxes?
Yeah,
Because
Ireland.
they headquartered in Ireland, they ran money through the Netherlands and then shipped it off to a bank account in the Caribbean.
We essentially don't exist. We're in the fifth dimension.
Right. Ireland said not so fast.
Yeah, we'd like some of that money,
Yes.
please.
As Ireland is instituting their 6th round of austerity, hopefully their last. Finally, the finance minister said, we're not going to keep cutting services, cutting funds
Right.
for individuals without making you tax-dodging corporations pay your fair share. So they're closing that loophole and
Right.
saying if you want to be headquartered in Ireland, you're going to pay taxes here. And if that makes you move, so be it.
And the conservatives always say that, the United States has the highest corporate tax rate next to Ireland. I would imagine they're going to be moving their headquarters.
Yes. First and foremost, Ireland's corporate tax rate, according to Daily Kos, so it's just a source I trust completely, is 12.5%.
Right, that's probably the effective
right
tax rate.
So, nonsense.
These are all words games. We have, our corporate tax rate is in the 20s or 30s or whatever. No, it's not.
And as we see from
the effective
Apple,
tax rate is like zero mostly.
And as we see from Apple and Microsoft and Google and lots of companies headquartered there, the effective tax rate in Ireland is a big fat zero.
Yeah.
But not anymore. Starting next year, 2014.
Corporations can no longer exist only in the cloud.
Exactly. So good for Ireland. And
they're going to download Apple.
Maybe our lawmakers could, I don't know, talk to the finance minister, see how to work something like that out here. Just saying.
Oh, then we might destroy businesses. I'm sorry. I'm being sarcastic now.
Anyhow.
I've been sarcastic all morning, I think.
Big show in store for you guys, so don't go anywhere. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we'll be back with more. Stick around.
Hey, it's Hal Sparks from the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide, and this is Talking Left.
The experts at Web.com want to build your business a successful website for free, just like they did for these Web.com customers.
We've used and looked at other website designers, but there's nobody better than Web.com.
Web.com can have your website built for free and up and running in as little as 7 days. Plus, promote your site on all the major search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing.
If you're in business today and you don't have a web presence, you won't be taken seriously.
Call now to get your website built for free. If after 30 days you're happy with your new website, we'll continue to provide promotion, hosting, support, and maintenance, all for just one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing. Call 855-254-SITE, 855-254-SITE, 855-254-7483, or go to web.com/radio. There is no upfront charge for building the website, after which the ongoing fee applies. Rights to the website are relinquished upon cancellation unless otherwise purchased.
For the careful investor, these are challenging times. Thankfully, there's Assured Guarantee. When you invest in municipal bonds insured by Assured Guarantee, every dime of principal and interest is guaranteed, backed by a quarter-century of experience and $12 billion in claims-paying resources. Ask your financial advisor about Assured Guarantee, the proven leader in municipal bond insurance. For investors who embrace possibilities, but invest in certainties.
An official message from Medicare.
It's that time of year again.
Football season.
Medicare open enrollment season, October 15th through December 7th. Time to compare plans, see what's new.
But I like what I have.
You don't have to change, but it's always good to look. You could find better coverage, save money, or both. Where you going?
The game.
The computer.
Okay.
Visit Medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE. Now's the time.
If you're a responsible homeowner who's faithfully made your mortgage payments, you deserve thanks for doing the right thing. And I'd like to tell you about a powerful financial tool that rewards your responsibility. Hi, I'm Jay Garner, president of Quicken Loans. And the tool that I'm talking about is the Home Affordable Refinance Program, or HARP. HARP is designed to help you lower your mortgage payments. It's for responsible homeowners who are current on their payments, but due to the housing market may have little or no equity left in their home. And even if you were unable to get a HARP loan in the past, new guidelines mean that now you may be eligible. Over 2.5 million homeowners have already taken advantage of HARP and are saving an average of $250 a month. If you're one of the millions yet to take advantage, call us today at 800-QUICKEN. To learn more, call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com. That number again is 800-QUICKEN.
Important terms and conditions apply. Call us for cost information. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Are you concerned about blood pressure, cholesterol, or other cardiovascular issues? Are you taking an omega-3 supplement but are not seeing the results you've been promised? Dr. Steven Sinatra's famous Little Red Pill is the only fish oil alternative enhanced with resveratrol, providing you with sustained energy and the amazing health results you've been looking for. Balance triglycerides and cholesterol, improve circulation, get rid of blood pressure problems, and many other signs of aging with Omega Q Plus with resveratrol. Call today to find out how to get a free bonus bottle of Omega Q Plus with resveratrol as part of our radio special. Dr. Steve Sinatra is America's #1 integrative cardiologist and formulates alternative to fish oil with high levels of omega-3, DHA, and EPA from a triple purified calamarine source with CoQ10, resveratrol, and 4 other ingredients for complete cardiovascular protection. This combination nearly doubles the power of fish oil for your heart and brain. Call now to get your free bonus bottle at 1-800-575-0558 and ask for Omega Q Plus with resveratrol. It's 1-800-570-558. Again, 1-800-575-0558. 1-800-575-0558.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Hanging out here with you live from Washington, D.C. And right around the corner from us, in the state of Virginia.
It's a little south.
Yes.
A little south, a little west.
Yes, but right around the corner.
We see all the ads.
For anybody who hasn't heard of the voter purge going on in Virginia.
Well, first of all, there's a big election coming.
Big election for governor.
Yeah. Virginia's elections are 1 year off from the national presidential elections.
And
they're 1 year after every single time. And it's the first reaction, usually, to who won, who lost in the last federal election, presidential election. Last time we ended up with McConnell.
Yeah, that's working out really well for the state of Virginia.
And I think I'm correct on this, that Virginia has term limits in that you can't serve more than one term. You can serve as many terms as you want, but no
not
consecutive terms. You can't run for one term and then the next term. You can run for a term, leave for a term, come back for a term. I'm pretty sure on this.
Interesting. I did not know that. But
that's only if it's true.
Anybody who hasn't heard, the Virginia Board of Elections, under the order of Ken Cuccinelli, Attorney General ultrasound.
Yeah, transvaginal ultrasound.
Craziest of the crazy, has ordered a purge of more than 38,000 names from the voter rolls just weeks before the election. And Democrats tried to challenge that in court. What do you know? As of Friday morning, a U.S. District Court judge said there's not enough evidence of inequitable treatment to stop the voter purge. Now,
what?
Yeah.
Now, that's a
Now,
pretty high standard.
it really is, especially considering that local board of election officials have found huge discrepancies in this list. People who should not be purged from the rolls, people who are, legally registered to vote in Virginia. These are a list that Cuccinelli says is essentially people who are registered to vote out of state or shouldn't qualify to vote for other reasons. And the local officials are like, hey, hang on here. There are huge error percentages in these lists. These are not, disqualified voters.
Their voters are going to vote for Terry McAuliffe, you mean?
Exactly.
Come on, let's just call it what it is.
Let's call it
I
what it
can't win this election, so I'm going to steal it.
Right.
I watched Bush do this for George in 2000. Let's try it here.
Now,
Come on.
Interestingly enough, Cuccinelli's politics in and of themselves have alienated a huge portion of the state. Like pretty much anybody.
Like a little more than half of it. In other words, all women.
Yes. And lots of men who support women's rights.
Of course.
But I think this voter purge is also having a opposite effect because Terry
kind of like
McAuliffe,
that. How dare you take my vote away?
Terry McAuliffe is skyrocketing in the polls. As of the latest poll, you can check it out at realclearpolitics.com.
Yeah.
If you look at the graph, I mean, they're just completely separating from each other. That gap is growing and growing and growing. Right now, as of 10:15, McAuliffe is polling at 46.8%, Cuccinelli at 39%. That's a big difference in politics in an election. I don't know the 38,000 people purged from the voter rolls is going to cut it for Cuccinelli. You can try and steal it, but when you're that crazy, that even independents and reasonable people...
Never assume that's the only way they're trying to steal it.
I know.
You know?
Yes, but it's a lot harder to steal. When you have polls like this that say, people are going to ask some questions.
I ask you to look at Ohio in 2004.
I know.
I don't put anything past these people, and this is just one of their multi-pronged, because they can't win on issues. We have shown this.
Right.
They cannot win on issues.
Right.
So either they try to change the subject into something and try to scare the heck out of people, and on top of it, they rig elections. block people from the polls, gerrymander. It is a multi-pronged attack in order to stay in power when you do not represent the people. That is, it is a common theme all the way through.
Right.
Period. And they're going to do it as much as possible here.
They, of course they are. And you have Cuccinelli, who's the attorney general, directing this voter purge.
No conflict of interest there. He doesn't care about conflict of interest. Please, he takes lots of money from friends and things.
It is ridiculous. But we just saw Cory Booker win an election by a landslide by almost 10 points.
Yeah.
And, it looks like McAuliffe is set up to do the same here in Virginia. I think in addition, knock on wood, in addition to Cuccinelli just being freaking crazy and people, adamantly against him, I think this is also a response to what the radical right just pulled off and what they did to our country. And people saying, no, we don't want people like you leading our nation.
So you're trying to make this a referendum on the Tea Party? Is that
Come
what
on.
you're trying to do?
Cuccinelli could hold the Tea Party parade.
Yeah. Well, he had Ted Cruz in, didn't he?
Yeah, and didn't Ted Cruz snub him?
I think it's the reverse. Like,
oh, that's it. Yeah.
I don't think I want to show up, green eggs and ham guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyhow.
Probably not the best time.
If
the Tea Party can't win in Virginia, they are really... Virginia is the South.
Yeah, it's something to watch, as this election occurs. But if poll numbers keep going like they're going, I don't even think they can steal it. And if they do, people are going to be asking some serious questions.
I will tell you what, on November 6th, the day after, then we'll talk about that. I don't, especially in off-year elections, go vote, please.
Yes, please. If you're hearing this, if you're in Virginia, make sure you get out and vote. If you are not in Virginia, please make sure to help them get out the vote and get people to the polls,
Yeah.
Tweet,
Hillary Clinton
Facebook.
was there.
Get the word out. So
Our next nominee was there yesterday.
Anyhow.
Maybe.
Yes, we have to run to a break, and we're going to be back in just a few minutes with David Bender, political director of Progressive Voices, and he's going to be talking about the future of the Republican Party and people like Ted Cruz. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Talking Left, and we'll be back with more, so stick around.
It reflects the drama of the human experience, and isn't that the essence of art?
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
What amazing alchemists Wall Street bankers are. They can turn failure into gold and reform into business as usual. These sorcerers have pulled off both tricks right in front of us since their 2007 collapse. They turned that gross failure into an ongoing multi-trillion-dollar bailout by us taxpayers to restore them to even grosser levels. Then, while the public howled for lawmakers to shackle their greed, these bewitching bankers reached into their magic hat and pulled out the massive Dodd-Frank reform law that, hocus pocus, adds up to the status quo. And, as a West Texas farmer once told me, status quo is Latin for the mess we're in. Wall Street's greatest deception is the claim that they're brave risk-takers who put their money into enterprises that create America's economic growth. Bovine excrement. One, as we've seen, they're not investing in enterprises. They're frittering away America's investment funds on ridiculous get-rich-quick gambling schemes. Second, they're not risking their money or that of their shareholders, but ours. When we deposit money with Chase, Bank of America, etc., we make a practically zero-interest loan to them that they take to global gambling tables. Of the $2.4 trillion held by J.P. Morgan Chase, for example, $2.2 trillion is borrowed from us. It's our cash they're risking. And when their convoluted gambles fail, as in 2007, everything collapses, and they'll run to Washington again, demanding a bailout. So the reform that matters is to make them put, say, half of their own money into each roll of the dice, rather than piling 90% of each risk on our backs. But does the Dodd-Frank reform law do that? No, it allows banks to stack 95% of their risk on us. This is Jim Hightower saying that is Wall Street's dirtiest trick yet.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's realism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, the Workers' Independent News Service. I'm Jesse Russell. States are increasingly feeling the impact of the ongoing government shutdown. As the House Republican shutdown of the government continues, states are running out of funds typically used to keep state workers on the job. On average, 1/3 of revenues in each state comes from federal funding. Some states are trying to make do with partial furloughs by having employees work part-time. Arkansas released new furlough numbers Monday, reporting that 1,200 workers could be furloughed for 2 weeks. Michigan has said that if Congress doesn't find a solution by October 20th, between 15,000 and 20,000 state workers could be furloughed. Oklahoma is planning to furlough as many as 400 employees this week. Federally funded workers that have mostly avoided furloughs due to the type of work they provide will also start facing furloughs in the coming week. The nation's most contaminated nuclear site, Hanford Nuclear Reservation in Washington state, will likely need to furlough 9,000 workers if Congress can't reach a compromise. In Idaho, roughly 3,500 workers at the Idaho National Laboratory could be furloughed by October 21st. The number one issue for Virginians heading into a gubernatorial election continues to be the economy. Doug Cunningham reports.
We are not fighting just for our members. We are fighting for all working people. We stand up for the working people. Whether you carry a union card or not, we're going to be there for you so that if you're injured on the job, you'll be taken care of. So that if you get sick, you'll be taken care of. So that you can earn a wage so that you can take care of yourself and your family.
Dan Duncan, president of the AFL-CIO's Northern Virginia Central Labor Council. Duncan says the economy is still issue number one for Virginians, and there's been little or no economic stimulus effort from Virginia's government.
October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and this year's event marks a major shift in women being able to access the health care that they need. Allison Burns reports.
Matt Schaefer works for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. He says under the Affordable Care Act, women cannot be denied coverage because of a pre-existing condition, such as breast cancer.
It prohibits lifetime dollar limits on coverage, and it also restricts the amount of out-of-pocket costs. And for an organization like the American Cancer Society that's focused on finding a cure to this disease, nothing can be better.
Each year in Virginia, there are more than 6,000 new cases diagnosed, and around 1,100 women in the state die from breast cancer.
You've been listening to WIN, the Workers' Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
Workers Independent News is brought to you with support from union-owned and represented Bank of Labor. Member FDIC, equal opportunity lender. Doing whatever it takes to meet your business lending needs for new construction, remodeling, or building training facilities. Online at bankoflabor.com.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a pep talk that can motivate you.
Sometimes things don't always turn out the way you want them to.
You can improve your future. Now get your game face on and take the first step towards a better life. Hurry up. Don't make me repeat myself.
Whatever level of motivation you need, we've got a pep talk for you. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org for your pep talk and for free classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you are checking us out. Joining us now is the one and only, the brilliant, the talented, the lovely David Bender, political director for Progressive Voices. You can check it out on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn and progressivevoices.com. Thank you for joining us, David.
Always a pleasure. Now that we have a working government, I think everyone else should be working too.
Yes, absolutely. We are getting hard. We are hard at work here in the Talking Left studios.
We never stopped, as it turns out. It may have been that other people did, but there was the thing that was so astonishing was when people who have been decrying government, big government, for years, suddenly discovered what it is that big government does for not even big government, just even small government. And when those people aren't available, park rangers and any of the basic functions that government performs, when those go away, people wake up. And they understand that government is an extension of themselves. That's all it has ever been, and Ronald Reagan's efforts to make people hate their own government have worked for a long time until moments like this.
Yes, and then suddenly people realize that, hey, government actually does some things that I kind of need, I kind of find important.
And for that reason, I wish they'd shut down more of the government and people had really figured out what the federal government does for them. And I think that the people who shut down the government did their absolute best to minimize the effects so that people wouldn't realize the full extent of what it does. Don't you think, David?
I do. And this was the pitiful sort of exercise that the House went through of trying to fund basic things, and the President and Harry Reid, to their great credit, remember Harry Reid coming out of the White House saying the President was strong, 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 wouldn't give in, wouldn't say you're going to get to do this piecemeal and fund the things that people like. The same was true with the sequester. Republicans were fine with the sequester until it hit the military. And what's really interesting now is the sequester was off the table for all of this, and those cuts remain in effect. And we're going to see how much of this was rhetoric and what the reality is when the military starts to feel some of this, and some of their supposed friends in the Congress have to explain how they let this happen.
Yeah, and it is really interesting, I think, that when the sequester occurred, it was the Obama-quester. It was President Obama is, purposely causing so much pain, and throughout this whole debt ceiling and government shutdown debate, now the sequester is a win for Republicans. They're touting this as a victory. I think partly that's just to come away saying that they got something, that they were not shut out of quote-unquote negotiations,
right.
But now they own this, right?
They own it, and they're going to have to live with the consequences of it. A lot more the way this plays out, the way it'll play out with the December deadline, and I frankly think that the politics of this, and I hope in the time that we've got, we can look at what really the politics of this reveal. First off, two people who hate and loathe each other, Harry Reid and Mitch McConnell, came in and saved the day. Now, why did that happen, do we suppose? Well, let's just look at it. The middle of December, they have agreed to have budget discussions, long-term fixing of taxation, fixing of theoretically the entitlement programs, everything on the table. Well, that's great, but it's meaningless because there is nothing like the sequester. There's nothing in there that says they have to arrive at it. They've simply agreed to talk. What we do know is that Mitch McConnell, whose numbers are underwater in Kentucky, is perhaps the only vulnerable incumbent Republican up for re-election in 2014. He's it. Sort of this Harry Reid looked to be very vulnerable in the last cycle. And Mitch McConnell looked at his numbers and said, if I can make it through, he's got $10 million in the bank at least, if I can make it through a challenge on the right in Kentucky and get to the general election, that's where I'm in trouble. Allison Grimes is running ahead of him, even or ahead of him in polls right now. If he acts like the statesman that he pretended to be and has never been in 5 terms in the Senate by brokering this deal, this is what Harry Reid gave him. Harry Reid threw him a carrot to say, look, you can come out and look good to the people in your state. And that's, in my judgment, just call me cynical. That's what happened. That's what brought Mitch McConnell to the table. And that's how we got out of this.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about the politics of all of this, and the politics, I agree with you 100% with Harry Reid. He knows his only chance of actually getting reelected is to move away from... Mitch McConnell is to move away from the far right, to distance himself from Ted Cruz and the Tea Party. However, that presents an interesting challenge for him in the primary.
It does.
But
it also presents an interesting challenge to him in the fact that the other senator from his same state is Rand Paul, You think about that one.
And you know how deep a friendship they have.
Yes.
But in point of fact, it looks like McConnell can survive. It'll be tough, and there's still a lot of people, frankly, who are weighing in from outside the state of Kentucky. Mitch McConnell says they're all from New York and Hollywood, and frankly, they are from the Club for Growth, and they're from Jim DeMint and folks like that who would love to take down Mitch McConnell. So that primary may still be a hurdle that will be difficult for him to survive. We'll see. He's got a ton of money, and I think he wins his primary. His bigger problem is the general election. That's what he just tried to put away. I mentioned Jim DeMint. The news that it really was staggering in the week just past is that the thing that almost scuttled this was a press release from Jim DeMint's folks saying to the House, don't support it. And to the Senate, don't support it.
Yeah, the night before was Heritage Action put out that don't you
resigned
dare.
his Senate seat to become, frankly, more powerful outside the Senate.
Yes. I just want to remind everybody quickly, we're speaking with David Bender, the political director of Progressive Voices. You can check it out on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn. You know, speaking of Jim DeMint and the crazier members of this party, I had to get your opinion on Ted Cruz. It seems he has been shunned now from the majority of the party.
Shunned.
Yeah.
Like bad Amish.
Yes. What's the future for him and for the party? I mean, are we going to see him leading a third-party ticket?
Nope.
I can't see him getting the endorsement of the whole party.
But remember, this is the Republican primary and caucus process, Danielle, and what we have seen, we've seen people like Pat Robertson do well, Rick Santorum do well. I think Rick Santorum ultimately, after 12 recounts, won Iowa. These people do very well when the base is, in fact, determining the selection. And if it's Iowa, it's New Hampshire, it's South Carolina, you got to say, Ted Cruz right now is running away with the base. He has eclipsed, he's passed Rand Paul, he's passed Marco Rubio, but total those numbers. Ted Cruz is at 20% right now in the latest polls of Republican primary voters. And, you know, if you go back 8 years, Barack Obama was at 0. So these numbers are essentially meaningless except for the snapshot they give us of where the Republican Party base is right now. 20 for Cruz, 17% for Rand Paul, 11% for Marco Rubio. By my math, that is almost half of the Republican Party supports someone who is basically a Tea Party candidate. And that's where the party is going. Ted Cruz doesn't have to leave the Republican Party, and Harry Reid rightly said he's a laughingstock to everybody but himself, except for all the people who vote in the Iowa caucuses and in those Republican primaries. Ted Cruz is someone to be very worried about if you're a Republican who cares about your party. He'll make Barry Goldwater look like Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, yes, that's where the base is. And we always talk about how the Republican Party, those first states, you know, the base turns out and you could get someone who's to the far right. But if we look at the nominations, who actually comes out on top for the presidential run on the Republican side, no matter what, it seems that they do end up with the more moderate person, Mitt Romney, John McCain. So while I'm just wondering if he's just going to make a splash in the beginning, and then when he doesn't win because he's such a narcissist, say, screw it, I'm going to go start my own party, or I'm going to run on my own because what I really care about is cameras in my face.
Well, you know, it's a fair point. It's tough to run on your own unless you are self-funding. It's tough to get on those ballots. So, you know, Ralph Nader did it. It can be done. The truth is, you look at the schism in the Republican Party, Shane, and it may well be true that John McCain and Mitt Romney won those nominations, but they never won the hearts of the Republican Party. And people going back and looking at these last two cycles say the reason we lost is because we did not nominate a true believer to take on Barack Obama. There was no real contrast. And that's the argument they're going to be making. And frankly, I would rather see a very clear contrast. I don't want another Mitt Romney who takes, 5 positions on every issue. John McCain was the same. John McCain repudiated almost everything he had been articulating about immigration or climate change for years in order to win the nomination. Let's have someone that actually resonates with the core of this increasingly more strident and less influential party, but let him or her, it'll likely be him, run on those issues and be a true believer. And let's see where the country comes down on that. That would be good for democracy.
And it would be a lot more like 1980. I'm not saying the outcome would be, but that was the true believer moment for the Republican Party back then with Ronald Reagan. And I know Democrats back then kind of said, what, an actor from Hollywood? No way. And then he surprised everybody because he did win the hearts and the minds. And I think the GOP, at least the true believers and the Ted Cruz fans, are seeing this as that type of revolution.
Well, the difference between Ronald Reagan and Ted Cruz is that I always said about Ronald Reagan, if he'd stayed a Democrat, he could have led the country in a 180-degree different direction because he was genuinely likable. And ultimately, in a binary situation, you have two candidates standing side by side. Who do you like? Who is the likable candidate? Barry Goldwater was never particularly likable. And a true believer. Actually, he became much more likable later in his career. And not to say Lyndon Johnson was terribly likable, but Ted Cruz is going to energize those people who will show up. He says everything, frankly, that he believes, and he says it. He's more articulate than. Let's match him up against Sarah Palin or Michelle Bachmann.
True.
If you want someone who will really articulate and take this party down the wormhole that it has created for itself, I would love that. I don't think it's a Reagan-Carter outcome at all. I think it is the permanent dismembering of what was called by Kevin Phillips the emerging Republican majority. It's over if they nominate a Ted Cruz.
Yeah, that was exactly going to be my next question is, do the Republicans do themselves in with that type of nomination? And I have to say, I hope so.
I do too.
I would take a Democratic win. I think we would get it much more easily if that contrast was so stark. David, we really appreciate your brilliance and your insight on all of these issues. It's always amazing to talk to you and hear your thoughts on these intricate political issues.
It's great fun. I hope people listen not only to Talking Left, but to Progressive Voices, because we'll be talking about it as we hit this next election cycle. I just want to say quickly, keep your eye, and we'll come back and talk about it, on the U.S. Senate. For Harry Reid to stay majority leader, we're going to have to thread another needle. And there's a lot to talk about. So in the weeks and months to come, let's take a look at some of these Senate races, because people better be paying careful attention to what's going on.
I would love to, and I would love to get your insight on it. Thanks so much, David. We really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
David Bender, everybody, the political director of Progressive Voices. You can check it out on TuneIn, the Progressive Voices channel, as well as progressivevoices.com. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we'll be back with more, so stick around.
Ready to help rid the world of injustice and evil?
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano. With your Working Virginia update, I'm Doug Cunningham. As it looks for new ways to grow and to overcome the hurdles for workers who want to be in unions, AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka says that the key is effectively pursuing an agenda of shared prosperity for all American workers.
In order for workers to succeed, in order for workers to have a voice, they have to have a voice at the workplace. They have to have a voice in the economy. They have to have a voice in American politics. We're trying to do all three of those things. We're trying to create an environment where those workers that really want to have a union can have a union. We're trying to create an environment where we join together with our progressive progressive friends to create an economy that doesn't just work for the top 1%, but works for all workers. We call it shared prosperity.
Working Virginia Update, produced by Workers Independent News. I'm Doug Cunningham.
This update made possible by the Office and Professional Employees International Union, ensuring fair treatment, fair wages, and benefits for thousands of working Virginians. Online at opeiu.org.
I need to archive emails to comply with business regulations.
Do you have an IT guy to help search through thousands of PSD files?
No.
Got time to install a complicated product or create detailed reports?
No.
You okay paying storage fees to save duplicate emails and images?
No.
Offshore automated phone tree support okay?
No.
Then yes, we can help.
The Barracuda Message Archiver lets you store and find emails fast to avoid compliance and litigation penalties. Easy setup and single instance storage will save you time and money. And if you need help, you'll talk to a live human. Try the Barracuda Message Archiver free. Go to barracuda.com/yes.
Mondays are no good. Mondays make you use your alarm clock again and sit in a cubicle. But Tuesdays, Tuesdays are awesome. Why? Because that's when Wing Tuesdays happen at Buffalo Wild Wings. Every Tuesday, you can get specially priced wings, spun fresh in your choice of any of their over 20 sauces and seasonings. You want mild? They got mild. You want Asian zing? They got Asian zing. So when next Monday comes around, reminded how much better Tuesdays are. But I'm sure it already knows. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
The experts at Web.com want to build your business a successful website for free, just like they did for these Web.com customers.
We've used and looked at other website designers, but there's nobody better than Web.com.
Web.com can have your website built for free and up and running in as little as 7 days. Plus, promote your site on all the major search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing.
If you're in business today and you don't have a web presence, you won't be taken seriously.
Call now to get your website built for free. If after 30 days you're happy with your new website, we'll continue to provide promotion, hosting, support, and maintenance, all for just one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing. Call 855-254-SITE, 855-254-SITE, 855-254-7483, or go to web.com/radio. There is no upfront charge for building the website, after which the ongoing fee applies. Rights to the website are relinquished upon cancellation unless otherwise purchased.
For us guys, it seems to start in our 30s. It shows up at the gym with decreased strength, but you see it most in the mirror. You see that older, less masculine-looking guy who's put on 20 pounds, lost a step, and lost more than a little muscle tone. Worst of all, she's already noticed. It's not your fault. You owe it to yourself to try a free 1-month supply of Enzyte MRC, a natural way to recapture your alpha male side. Countless men already depend on Enzyte MRC and how it makes them feel and look in the mirror. Welcome back, big guy. Bottom line, Enzyte MRC is for men who want to rediscover that stronger, leaner, healthier, more energetic, and manlier guy they left behind. See for yourself with a free 30-day trial of Enzyte MRC and just pay shipping, and you'll see what we mean. That's a free 30-day trial, but you need to act now. Go to freemrc.com or call 800-933-4004. 800-933-4004. That's 800-933-4004. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. Free trial requires via life enrollment with future auto shipments.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you're checking us out. SoFlo Radio, We Act Radio, or maybe hanging out in the chat room with us over at TalkingLeft.com.
Whoopee.
And Shane, you were looking up something. I know we were talking about Ken Cuccinelli and...
Sure, and I want to make sure I was right. Because I say lots of things, and sometimes I'm not right, but I was right about this one. And this is a fun fact that I think a lot of our listeners probably know because they're really, really, really smart. But in case you don't, if you want to sound really smart at some kind of political discussion, it used to be that all of the governor's houses in our country, back when America was young, when governors they could run for one term, they couldn't succeed themselves.
Interesting.
So we think of term limits. You can only have like the president 2 4-year terms, and you're done. That's it. We can't bring Bill Clinton back. For the president. Well,
okay,
we'll take,
Clinton. Yeah.
We'll take Hillary. We'll take Secretary Clinton.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, but it's Article 5, Section 1 of the Virginia Constitution. The governor shall be ineligible to the same office for the term next succeeding that for which he was elected. Interesting. What happens if it's a woman? Then that wouldn't apply to her, would it? Think about it. Think about it. I'm sure the Virginia Supreme Court has ruled that all male pronouns apply to females too. I'm sure there's a case out there, but
I would hope so in general for the Constitution, our national Constitution.
Together probably with their same-sex marriage laws, you might have a problem. We should elect a female Democratic governor of Virginia and ask her to run for a second succeeding term. See what happens. Come on. Just to mess with people. The only way you can change is by amending your Constitution, Virginia.
And if you amend it while we're there.
While we're at it, we got some other things we'd like to work on there.
Just a little.
Just a couple things. Come on.
It's interesting, though, that you get into weeds even on the Virginia Constitution. And I think, personally, our listeners appreciate that.
Well, I'll tell you what. The people in power, they're in the weeds.
Yeah.
And that's how they get away with what they do. We talked about the Rules Committee last week.
Right.
The Rules Committee has a lot of power. They put some things in there that you would shock. Think about this. We had this whole fight about shutting down the government. And when it opened up again and we dealt with the debt deal, who got $2.9 billion for a dam in his state?
Mitch McTurtle.
Yes. So, those are the types of things that happen in the weeds.
Right. But, so many of the political shows, the corporate mainstream political shows, never get into
Rhetoric
the weeds.
Divorced from reality. That's my new tag.
I think it's appropriate because they gloss over everything. In fact, one of the comedians we watched last night did a perfect impression.
Oh, that was awesome.
Of how politicians answer questions.
Can you imagine if your friends would answer questions like politicians? He did this whole bit where he's asking his friend to pick him up from the airport, and of course the guy never answered.
Right.
First of all, it was hilarious.
Right, but just speaking in broad platitudes and...
Platitudes divorced, platitudes, never answering it, trying to be on every side of an issue.
Right.
Never taking a stand.
And everybody wants to look like they're the winner. Even in situations where they're not.
Yeah.
And we've seen the same thing with the debt limit deal. And we want to get into some specifics that many people may not be aware of. Even
I would say the New York Times, USA Today, Reuters, all of them actually used verbiage that was incorrect.
Right.
Because we have a quiz for everyone.
We do.
The debt ceiling before this whole thing was $16.669 trillion.
Right.
What does everyone think it is? Now that we've had this deal, what do they think it is today?
Exactly. And
what do you think it is? Because they throw that around, 17 trillion. What do you think it is today after we've had this deal? It'll shock you.
Yes. It'll
surprise you.
We're going to get into that after the break because there are some details that people really need to understand about this deal and how it's going to affect the future debates about the economy and fiscal policy in our country. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we'll be back with some very important information. So stick around.
It's just implied, but we all know what's going on in this thought bubble. The kids don't know, but we do.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
It's Tuesday, October 15, 2013.
Breaking, the Supreme Court to hear challenge to EPA greenhouse gas regulations. India dodges a bullet. Fukushima prepares for another. Meet the nation's newest oil spill, now in North Dakota. Government shutdown shuts down U.S. research program in Antarctica. Plus, glimpse the future with the latest winners in solar cars and solar houses.
All of those glimpses of the future straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Lady, we've got about 10 minutes before this entire country is up in flames. If you want to live, you better step on the gas. Oh, wait, is this a Tesla? Well, step on the prissy pedal. We're going to die. Ah!
This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, some pretty big breaking news just in as we go to air today. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear a challenge to new EPA greenhouse gas regulations.
Yes, and no surprise, the challenge comes from major industrial polluters. The good news is that the justices declined to hear challenges to the EPA's endangerment finding. That's the scientific finding that carbon emissions are pollutants that endanger human health and welfare. They also declined to revisit their own previous ruling, saying the EPA has the authority authority to set emission standards for cars and trucks. But the Supremes will now decide whether EPA authority extends to setting limits for big stationary industrial sources of pollution like power plants and refineries, which are by far the largest sources of U.S. greenhouse gas pollution.
So in 2007, the Supreme Court said, yes, the EPA has the right under the Clean Air Act, signed in the 70s by Richard Nixon. Yes, the EPA can regulate greenhouse gases coming out of automobiles. Now the question is, can they regulate greenhouse gases coming out of large power plants and so forth?
Exactly. And it's another industry attempt to derail and delay any new emissions limits for the biggest industrial polluters.
And we should add, the case that they're looking at was decided unanimously by 3 judges on the appellate court, 1 Reagan appointee, 2 Clinton appointees, who said that it was, quote, unambiguously correct that the EPA had the responsibility to limit greenhouse gases on these major power plants.
We'll see if the conservative majority on the Supreme Court agrees. They'll hear the case in 2014. Massive evacuations and extensive government preparations averted disaster in India, where super cyclone Paileen made landfall over the weekend.
They certainly wanted to avoid a repeat of what happened in 1999, where a lack of warning and lack of planning led to the death of 10,000 people.
That storm back in 1999 was the strongest hurricane ever recorded in the Bay of Bengal until Paileen, which tied the record, and it caused widespread devastating property and crop damage, but fewer than 30 people were killed by the storm compared to over 10,000 in 1999. Emergency measures are underway at the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in Japan to prepare for Typhoon Wifa. Forecasters say Wifa is weakening, but it is still the strongest storm to threaten the region in over 10 years. Plant owners are already overwhelmed trying to contain millions of gallons of radioactive wastewater. Meet the nation's newest oil spill, now in North Dakota. A farmer discovered over 800,000 gallons of crude oil had spilled from a pipeline on his land. Covers an area the size of 7 football fields. State officials waited 2 weeks before they were forced to acknowledge the spill's existence to the public because they say there was no environmental damage. But the farmer says the land will be unusable for at least several years.
So that's a pretty huge oil spill. Much of America hasn't heard about it because of the shutdown fight in Washington, D.C.
Speaking of the government shutdown, now in its 3rd week, the impacts continue to pile up. Unless funding is found, the U.S. research program in Antarctica will be canceled for the entire year. The scientists say that will devastate the U.S. Antarctic research program for many years because of the extremely difficult nature and long lead times for research in the harsh extremes of the Antarctic.
So major oil spill doesn't make the news. Potential shutting down of major scientific research doesn't make the news. Mission accomplished, mission accomplished.
But some good news.
They're in a car race that's taking them from Darwin in the north down to Adelaide in the south. And they're depending on that powerful Australian sun and their own ingenuity to get there.
Students from the Netherlands Eindhoven University of Technology won this year's World Solar Challenge, a car race powered solely by the sun across the Australian outback. Their solar-paneled 3-seater sedan beat 39 other teams from across the world. We also have a winner in the Solar Decathlon, the international design competition held by the U.S. Department of Energy to award the best, most efficient solar-powered house built from the ground up by teams of university students. On Saturday, Vienna University of Technology won first place overall for the most affordable, energy-efficient, and most attractive solar-powered house. Students from the University of Nevada took second place, but every house in the competition this year produced more energy than it used, including appliances.
The house itself produced more energy than was used by the house itself.
That's right.
Let's have more of that. Speaking of more of that, you can get more of that at our website, greennews.bradblog.com. Don't forget, you can download the Green News Report anytime via iTunes, Stitcher, or TuneIn. Find us and like us on the Facebook and follow us 24/7 on the Twitters at Green News Report. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., this is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. So, reading the headlines here in front of me, and they're very interesting. New York Times, The debt limit crisis is over. The debt ceiling has been raised.
The debt ceiling has been raised.
February 7th.
Oh, you're quoting, right?
Yes.
The debt ceiling has been raised.
Yes. Reuters also says the debt ceiling has been raised until February 7th.
Wait. No.
Fox News. Obama signs budget deal. Oh, excuse me. This is USA Today. Obama signs budget deal, ending shutdown, raising the nation's $16.7 billion debt ceiling. And, of course, Fox News. Obama signs bill partial shutdown. They had to throw that one in there. Raising debt ceiling.
Right. Now, it's interesting. That one that says raising debt ceiling until February 7th. Now, I thought the debt ceiling, they're measuring debt ceiling in terms of time.
Right.
Rather than money.
Right.
Think about that.
We asked you before the break.
The debt ceiling doesn't say you can borrow as much debt as you want until.
No, it does not.
In fact, they say we're at this number, and then we're going to mess with accounting as best we can to push it off because you guys are procrastinators and crazy politicians. But it's not measured in terms of time, folks. It's measured in terms of dollars. And we asked you before the break, what do you think? You know, Fox News, of course, rounded up. It's 16.669 trillion. And you can go find that if you want. It's 31 USC, 3101, and 3101A. Go look it up. Why are you giving that look?
I just love that you're quoting the...
It's the United States Code. Yes. Title 31. It's 3101 and 3101A. Now, A is very interesting because it turns out that they did the same thing at the last debt ceiling.
Back in 2011.
Yeah, as they just did now. Because I will tell you, I'll report to you right now that we did not raise the debt ceiling. We did not. I know that's going to shock you. Does that shock you, Daniel? I know we've been talking about this for the last few days. So we actually did a top of the hour.
When we figured this out, we actually looked at the law,
you're like, Shane, will you read this for me,
please? I
can't figure out what this...
think I'm reading this correctly, but it is in legal mumbo-jumbo, and I want to make sure that this says we didn't raise the debt ceiling.
We did not raise the debt ceiling. Not yet.
We suspended. Debt ceiling.
So instead of dealing with it in terms of dollars, they did actually deal with it in terms of time. For now,
it just doesn't matter
For now,
we put the debt ceiling in timeout.
Yeah. Put it in the corner with the cone on its head.
Right.
You have a time out.
Right. But what they did is very interesting.
It is, and they've done this before, and they call it the McConnell Rule. And when we first read about the McConnell Rule in terms of the rhetoric divorced from reality, it sounded like a great idea.
Right.
Because he says, well, this is a way to not make it political.
And this is a way that the debt ceiling can't be held hostage. And
we've just done for 16 days.
Exactly, that it won't risk the worldwide economic collapse because of some Tea Party members of Congress.
No.
However,
so
what they did is very interesting.
Yeah, and if you want to look it up for yourself, I encourage you to do so. You're like, why are you putting that in front of the camera, Shane? HR 2775. You have to go to the very end of it, and it's where they where it's section 1002. All right. So what this is, the short title is Default Prevention Act of 2013. Hey, at least they named what it really is.
Right.
That's a good thing. That's a big step for them. It's a big step. Essentially what this thing does is it says, we're going to suspend the debt ceiling until February 5th, but we may revoke that suspension if we want to. And we're going to suspend all of the filibuster rules and points of order and blah, 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 blah on both houses. And what the takeaway is that the Republicans can go in and they can vote no multiple times to raise the debt ceiling, knowing that the way they rig these rules, that the debt ceiling will be raised, that we will not go into default. So they can vote to appease their constituency that allegedly doesn't want the debt ceiling raised, but doesn't know what it really is.
Right. Well, let's back up here for a second.
Okay.
The way this bill was written, it's telling the president now to propose how much he wants to increase the debt ceiling.
Right. So they're right there. They want to make the debt the president's, not theirs. Even though they're the ones who come up with all the bills, there's three parts to doing it in Congress. This is what we want to do. This is how much we're appropriating it for it, and this is how we're going to pay for it. And they used to do that all together. We talked about this before when we were talking about the history of the debt ceiling. They would do that all together. This is what we want to do. This is how much it costs, so we're appropriating that, and this is how we're going to pay for it.
Right.
Now they say, this is what we want to do. Now do it.
and we'll figure out how to pay for it later.
Appropriate it later.
Right.
And then we have a fight. It's not appropriate. We'll shut down the government. Okay, we appropriated. How do we pay for it?
Right.
You have to issue debt because we're not bringing in as much tax money. So the three parts, they've divorced from one another so they can say, hey, let's have Medicare Part D, but we're not going to pay for it. Hey, let's have a war. We're not going to pay for it. And then when it goes on the book, they say, why'd you run up that big old debt? Well, we didn't. You did.
Right. So what they did in this bill.
Trying to keep me reined in here.
Yes, because you are so far in the weeds that people probably have no idea what we're talking about.
Sure they do.
What they did in this bill is say the president needs to propose the debt ceiling, and then Congress has to vote to disapprove.
Right.
Which is a lower majority. You don't have to have a 2/3 majority.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting they put it in terms of negative.
Right.
We're going to vote to disapprove it.
Right. So then 51 senators can vote against raising the debt
and
ceiling.
Most certainly more than half the House will.
Right.
I doubt the Senate will. So it'll probably stop there. And essentially what will happen is what the president proposed will go into effect. But if for some reason they're able to do that, then the president gets to veto it. And then it becomes his again. We voted against it. The president wants it. It's all that Democrat in the White House.
Right.
It's
and then the
Democrat
only
Party
way Congress could actually stop the debt ceiling from being increased
is another vote.
a 2/3 majority of Congress would have to support disapproving raising the debt ceiling.
Exactly.
So this is essentially put the debt ceiling squarely in the president's lap, saying you have to propose how much you're going to increase the debt ceiling by. And by the way, these 3 months don't count, so you're going to have to add in all of that money
well, no,
too.
it is a 3. He'll propose it up until February 7th. He'll say this is how much we need.
Right. But it puts it squarely in his lap.
So that when Sean Hannity says, we have $17 trillion of Obama debt. Well, no, we don't. We have $11 trillion of previous debt, and then we tacked on another 6, paying off the stuff that you already allocated and voted into law, then appropriated, then paid for.
Right.
The 3 things, they separate them out so they can say, see what we did. See what we did. We won a war and victory in Iraq. But we're not going to pay for it. That's yours. That's yours.
It's yours. And you're the one that ran up all this debt. And by the way, you're the one, President Obama, that wants to run up even more debt.
Right. And then they can say, well, we're the party of smaller government and low deficits. No, you're not. Reagan tripled the national debt. Bush doubled it.
Right.
The deficit has been cut in half since President Obama has become president. The rhetoric does not meet reality.
Right, but
and this is how they do it. These little things. And then you have USA Today, and I hate to say it, the New York Times going along saying they've raised the debt ceiling. No, they haven't.
No, they haven't.
They will. After the Republicans all get to vote no.
Right. And then
no responsibility. They talk about personal responsibility. That is not personal responsibility as a legislator. They are irresponsible.
Yes.
And they don't believe in the full faith and credit of the United States.
No. Speaking of Ted Cruz.
that was an interesting.
Rand Paul. Yeah, no, they put our entire economy at risk, the entire global economy at risk, purely for political gain. Sure. And while this deal...
And they managed to lose miserably, if you want to talk about winners and losers.
Yes, but they're still touting it as a win because they got to keep the sequester.
Yeah.
Remember, it was the Obama-quester.
Yeah, now it's theirs.
It is theirs. I think
you know what? They can have it.
I think it is the McConnell-quester now.
You think so?
The Turtle-quester.
It was actually the Paul Ryan's plan.
Okay.
It was Paul Ryan's plan way back, and then he tried to say no, it wasn't, but it really was. This was his brainchild, and it's his. You can have it.
It just what they've set up here is now we're going to raise the debt ceiling.
Right.
It's
we haven't yet. We're just suspending it.
Exactly. It's
getting a timeout.
It's too high of a threshold to reach for them to actually block it.
Right.
But this means that the president, who didn't write all that legislation, who didn't propose all of that spending, now owns all of that debt.
That's the ruse. That's how we're not going to use it as a political tool. We're going to actually turn it into a political tool so that when we run our ads in the 2014 election, I can say in my ads, I voted against the debt ceiling raise twice.
Right. And the president raised the debt increased the debt by $300 billion.
And when you have an uninformed electorate that says, I don't want any more debt. In my household, when I run out of income, if I don't have to pay for it, I just don't pay for it. I just don't go to my credit card company and get a higher. Running the government like a household is stupid. Its face.
Absolutely. and it's inherently false based on
Of course.
that would be like if they're running their households like they just ran the government shutdown and the debt ceiling. They essentially bought that house, bought the car on credit, and then said, well, income doesn't pay enough
Right.
for those payments, so I'm just not going to pay them. I'm going to keep the house.
I'm going to keep the house and I'm going to pay it off like a student loan while I'm still in school. I'm just going to pay the interest.
Right. See how well that works out
And
for
on
you.
top of it, they always talk, well, our debt is equal to our GDP. Well, I would like to see someone have a mortgage that's equal to their annual income.
Yeah. See if
Mortgage-
you can find a house that's that. Yeah. Exactly. It might be made of straw.
That isn't in Detroit.
Yeah. You shouldn't laugh, but
I'm
Yeah.
just saying. Saying.
it's just get ready for this next fight. It's
The next
going to
one-
happen.
Well, but the next one, the battle lines are already being drawn, trying to suss out what the sequester thing is going to be the battle line.
Yeah.
And what they're going to try to do is say, because the sequester was bad, but it's going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
And worse to us means better for them. Republicans don't want it either. They don't really want it, but they're going to say they want it. Because they know the reasonably intelligent ones, I know there's not many, know it's a bad idea. It's really going to hurt the economy. But they're going to say, we'll get rid of the sequester because we really like it, wink, wink, if you do this to entitlements, so-called entitlements, they like to call it.
Right.
The social safety net. If you gut the social safety net, if you increase the retirement age, if you means test Social Security, if you do X, Y, and Z, if you do chain CPI, then we'll ease the sequester, which they want to do anyways. I guarantee the smart ones we do. And that's going to be, and don't you dare raise any more revenue or taxes. Taxes are now their third rail. Again.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. But I mean, it is a good thing that the entire world economy is not at risk, but the politics of it.
As long as Rand Paul and Ted Cruz are in the Senate, the world economy is at risk because they don't believe in the full faith and credit of the United States. They don't. You think they think that liberals are all Saul Alinsky? They want to devalue the dollar, and then they know they can make the changes they want.
Well, we will talk about that in just a minute. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Hopefully that wasn't too far in the weeds for everybody. But yes, they did not raise the debt ceiling. They
Wait till we get
suspended
out of the
it.
Supreme Court today.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those days.
Is your head hurting yet, Danielle?
My eyes are crossed a little bit. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we'll be back with more in the weeds. So stick around.
Well, what is this? What's going on?
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
I need to archive emails to comply with business regulations.
Do you have an IT guy to help search through thousands of PSD files?
No.
Got time to install a complicated product or create detailed reports?
No.
You okay paying storage fees to save duplicate emails and images?
No.
Offshore automated phone tree support okay?
No.
Then yes, we can help.
The Barracuda Message Archiver lets you store and find emails fast to avoid compliance and litigation penalties. Easy setup and single instance storage will save you time and money. And if you need help, you'll talk to a live human. Try the Barracuda Message Archiver free. Go to barracuda.com/yes.
For us guys, it seems to start in our 30s. It shows up at the gym with decreased strength, but you see it most in the mirror. You see that older, less masculine-looking guy who's put on 20 pounds, lost a step, and lost more than a little muscle tone. Worst of all, she's already noticed. It's not your fault. You owe it to yourself to try a free 1-month supply of Enzyte MRC, a natural way to recapture your alpha male side. Countless men already depend on Enzyte MRC and how it makes them feel and look in the mirror. Welcome back, big guy. Bottom line, Enzyte MRC is for men who want to rediscover that stronger, leaner, healthier, more energetic, and manlier guy they left behind. See for yourself with a free 30-day trial of Enzyte MRC and just pay shipping, and you'll see what we mean. That's a free 30-day trial, but you need to act now. Go to freemrc.com or call 800-933-4004. 800-933-4004. That's 800-933-4004. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. Free trial requires via life enrollment with future auto shipments.
Hey, Bob, how's business? Is the new website helping?
Not good. I can't figure out how to get the website finished. How did you do it?
Easy. I called Web.com. They built my website for free.
Wow, free? Really? Web.com?
Yep, and in just 7 days. Then they promoted it on all the search engines.
Like Google, Yahoo, and Bing?
Exactly. And Web.com has helped grow my business so much, I had to bring on new staff.
Hey, if Web.com did it for you, they're perfect for me.
Web.com can build your website for free in as little as 7 days. If after 30 days you're happy with your new website, we'll continue to provide promotion, hosting, support, and maintenance, all for just one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing. Call now. 855-747-SITE. 855-747-SITE. 855-747-7483. Or go to web.com/radio. There is no upfront charge for building the website, after which ongoing fee applies. Rights to the website are relinquished upon cancellation unless otherwise.
Are you concerned about blood pressure, cholesterol, or other cardiovascular issues? Are you taking an omega-3 supplement but are not seeing the results you've been promised? Dr. Steven Sinatra's famous Little Red Pill is the only fish oil alternative enhanced with resveratrol, providing you with sustained energy and the amazing health results you've been looking for. Now you can balance triglycerides and cholesterol, improve circulation, get rid of blood pressure problems, and many other signs of aging with Omega Q Plus with resveratrol. Call today to find out how to get a free bonus bottle of Omega Q Plus with resveratrol as part of our radio special. Dr. Steven Sinatra is America's #1 integrative cardiologist and formulated this alternative to fish oil with high levels of omega-3, DHA, and EPA from a triple purified calamarine source with CoQ10, resveratrol, and 4 other ingredients for complete cardiovascular protection. This combination nearly doubles the power of fish oil for your heart and brain. Call now to get your free bonus bottle at 1-800-575-0558 and ask for Omega Q Plus with resveratrol. That's 1-800-575-0558. Again, 1-800-575-0558. 1-800-575-0558.
Mondays are no good. Mondays make you use your alarm clock again and sit in a cubicle. But Tuesdays, Tuesdays are awesome. Why? Because that's when Wing Tuesdays happen at Buffalo Wild Wings. Every Tuesday, you can get specially priced wings, spun fresh in your choice of any of their over 20 sauces and seasonings. You want mild? They got mild. You want Asian zing? They got Asian zing. So when next Monday comes around, remind it how much better Tuesdays are. But I'm sure it already knows. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Thanks for...
or in the afternoon if you're listening to it on replay, or 3 in the morning, or...
Right. But thanks for cutting through the weeds with us a little bit.
We have to come up with a liner. Washington, D.C.'s weed whacker.
I like that. So, yes.
The electric kind, not the gas-powered kind.
The government shutdown is officially over, but it cost our nation quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I like to think of it in a different frame.
Okay.
As we pointed out that, and this is, everybody's pointing this out now, that there was a rule that was changed in the House.
Yes.
That essentially, we knew that there was plenty of votes when, hell, we had the vote eventually, that if you put the Democrats who are going to vote
with the moderate Republicans,
with the less crazy Republicans, yes. I will not give them an inch, that it would have passed. It would have passed well before the shutdown. The difference between what was passed when they opened up the government again and what was being proposed on the 30th was there was no difference. They were exactly the same bill.
Right, pretty much.
So why did how much did it cost, in other words, to keep John Boehner in the speakership? Because $24 billion paid for him to stay where he is.
Yes.
Because that's the only thing that was if he had done this on the 30th, he would have lost his speakership. That's the only difference I can see between voting for it on the 30th and voting for it on the 16th.
$24 billion, 900,000 jobs, and that's at least. I have a feeling it will be far greater than that. But that was at the point when the government was reopened. And the fact is, $24 billion is a lot of money. It's actually pretty small in terms of our economy, which is why it's always laughable when the GOP complains about numbers like this.
Yeah.
But the $24 billion could have funded a lot of important programs in our country.
The number only matters because it's so partisan.
Right.
That $100,000 on a IRS video. That's $100,000 is a lot of money. $24 billion, not so much.
$24 billion.
I'm talking about the rights argument.
$24 billion is about the same as the entire Department of Agriculture's yearly budget.
So we could have double the Department of Agriculture's budget, or we could have John Boehner as speaker.
Right. All air transportation programs in our country, the FAA, security, research, all of it It only costs $21 billion a year.
So we could have air traffic controllers, or we can have, of course, these aren't oars. These are not oars, but we could have had half of the Transportation Improvement Act.
Right.
Or John Boehner as Speaker.
Right. I mean, the temporary assistance for needy families.
Which is of course, takers and and transfer of wealth.
Sure. $17.7 billion.
Or we could have John Boehner as Speaker.
Right. Cost of Head Start, CHIP, Children's Health Insurance Program, and WIC, Women, Infants,
All
and
three
Children.
together.
All three together.
Bunch
It's
of takers.
$25 billion.
Or John Boehner as Speaker.
Right. So let's see. We could take care of kids in the nation.
Or we could have John Boehner as Speaker.
Right.
Because I really want to hammer that is the only difference between voting for it on the 30th and the bill on the 16th. When they say, we got the sequester was in the one on the 30th.
Yes, it was.
It was there.
Yes.
Means testing for Obamacare was already there. They got nothing different other than Ted Cruz getting on his soapbox.
Hey, Ted Cruz got a lot of money and a lot of names for his campaigning purposes.
I will tell you, he could probably give 1/24th of that to a PR firm and could have gotten a lot more. But remember, that's not Ted Cruz's $24 billion or $1 billion. That's our
exactly
$24 billion that they wasted. They wasted it. They talk about waste, fraud, and abuse, which really is code for something completely different we should talk about sometime. Waste, fraud, and abuse is keeping the government closed for 16 days, fighting over a debt ceiling just to keep your job, John.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Mr. Speaker. He is the Speaker. Yeah. I will respect the position. Or if you really look at the rules, Eric Cantor.
Yeah. Well, Eric
Majority
Cantor,
leader.
I think, is even worse. He's waiting with a shiv as soon as John Boehner turns and isn't paying attention.
And the buzz is, we were going to talk with Justin about this, we think. What is the future of Speaker Boehner?
Right.
The buzz is that next time around, not so much.
Well, it's interesting. He cost our nation $24 billion to keep his job. And what we're going to talk to Justin about is, was it enough? Will he even keep his job with $24 billion? So we're going to get into that next with Justin Duckham of the Talk Radio News Service in just a few minutes. You can check it out at talkradionews.com. You can follow Justin on Twitter at jduckham. And we'll be back, we think, with Justin Duckham. So stick around.
A beautiful place full of wonderful things just waiting to be experienced.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
The failure of our corporate and political leaders to make sure every worker gets good health care is causing some unpleasant consequences, not just for them, but for all of us. Consequences like stomach flu. Ill workers often spread illness. This is because millions of employees who deal directly with the public as well as with co-workers are not covered by paid sick leave policies. So, when they come down with something like stomach flu, they still tend to drag themselves to work rather than going to bed until they recover. For staying home means a loss of pay or even loss of their jobs. Low-wage workers, such as those in the restaurant industry, are particularly vulnerable and, since they handle food, particularly threatening. Nearly 80% of America's food service workers receive no paid sick leave, and researchers have found that about half of them go to work ill because they fear losing their jobs if they don't. As a result, a study by the Centers for Disease Control finds that ill workers are causing as much as 80% of America's stomach flu outbreaks, which is one reason that CDC officials have declared our country's lack of paid sick leave to be a major public health threat. You'd think the industry itself would be horrified enough by this endangerment of its workforce and customers that it would either take the obvious curative step of providing the leave or of pushing in the name of public safety for a public sick leave program. But, au contraire, amigos, such huge and hugely profitable chains as McDonald's, Red Lobster, and Taco Bell not only fail to provide such sensible care for their employees, but have lobbied furiously against city and state efforts to require paid sick days. This is Jim Hightower saying all top executives who never touch the food their chains serve get paid sick leave. For them to deny it to workers is idiotic, short-sighted, and even more sickening than stomach flu.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown.
Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, the Workers' Independent News Service. I'm Jesse Russell. A report is giving new ammunition to fast food workers pushing for a higher minimum wage. According to a study released this week, 80% of fast food workers live in a household that has a combined income below the poverty line. The report was published this week by the UC Berkeley Center for Labor Research and the University of Illinois Department of Urban and Regional Planning. Of the households with front-end fast food worker positions, 24% relied on food stamps to get by, 19% had an adult using Medicaid, and 18% had a child on a Medicaid comparable program. This last year has seen a nationwide push by fast food workers calling for an increase in the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour. This push has often been led by one-day strike actions. The government shutdown had repercussions all across the country, including the stifling of many ongoing investigations by both the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and the Mine Safety and Health Administration. Dan Hyman reports.
At least half of the staff members at the federal safety agencies are furloughed, and many operations that normally keep workers safe on the job have stopped. Former New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman has been a leader in efforts to improve chemical plant safety since 9/11. She points to the stalled investigation into the huge explosion at the West Fertilizer Company in Texas that killed 15 people.
This is one of those areas where it should bring home to people the importance of Congress doing its business and getting us back on track, because we can't afford to have this lapse and continue any longer.
Half of Mine Safety and Health Administration personnel are off work, as are 90% of the employees at the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. 3 coal miners have died on the job since the shutdown began.
Quality of life for Americans continues to decline. A recent Bureau of Labor Statistics release shows that a full quarter of households are now below the poverty line. Doug Cunningham has the story.
According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, nearly 1/4 of all U.S. jobs now pay below the poverty line for a family of 4, and it isn't getting better. The biggest declines in real wages have been in the low-wage worker sectors. Many laid-off workers are finding that when they get back to work, it's at a lower wage. These low wages are happening even as worker productivity continues to increase. The Economic Policy Institute says if worker wages had kept up with American worker productivity gains over the last 3 decades, a worker earning $40,000 today would be earning $62,529. The Congressional Budget Office forecasts that income inequality, already the highest since the 1920s, will continue to grow for the next 2 decades.
You've been listening to WIN, the Workers' Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
I started going cold turkey. Well, at least when I'm in the car.
I know I shouldn't do it, but it's so hard to stop. That's why I hide it from myself, so I won't be tempted.
I used to do it all the time. I stopped by locking it in my glove compartment.
My friend used to do it way too much. Now I turn it off when we're in the car.
My solution is simple. I just don't do it.
There are lots of ways to stop yourself and others from texting and driving. How will you stop? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Justin Duckham will be joining us in just a few moments, but he just needed a few more minutes, so he'll be with us
to marshal that brilliance.
Exactly. It takes a lot of work to be that brilliant in the morning.
It does.
So in the meantime, we've been talking about the government shutdown, which, of course, the Republicans wanted to make all about Obamacare.
At first.
And
then it moved, and then they didn't know. And then they wanted to win something, and then they didn't win anything, but then they claimed they won.
Right. And if you...
I wish I could play games like that.
And if you...
I would always win.
And if you watch Fox News, which we do so you don't have to, you would think that Obamacare is a complete and total disaster. And in some states it is. In some states, people are really having a hard time finding affordable care in states that have rejected Medicaid expansion.
Oh,
there are a lot of
That's
people
a
who
real
are going to be
problem.
caught in a gap.
Yeah, there's a huge donut hole out there. And I think there's states even like Virginia that are saying, wait a minute, this wasn't such a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, in blue states,
Yeah. as
like
far
where
as-
we live here in Maryland,
Well, the thing is, I was getting so angry.
You were watching Fox.
Yes, I was watching the Hannity, I don't know, panel show now. He really doesn't host a show. He just gets a gaggle of idiots.
Yeah,
and they yell at each other.
Hannity getting trumped by college kids.
That was awesome.
Yeah, my favorite part of Hannity. Yes, a 23-year-old is smarter than Sean Hannity by a lot.
A fourth grader is.
Yes.
But the thing is, they kept having Ainsley, I call her Ainsley, it's really not nice, Ainsley Airhead, but it's Ainsley Earhart. She's like one of the Fox and Freaks in the morning. And she was on her little computer and trying to sign up for Obamacare for weeks. For weeks. You know, trying, well, it turns out that she's trying to sign up on South Carolina's.
Right.
The thing is, there are differences. The way Obamacare was set up is that it is a federal law, but each state, you get to do what you want. Remember, you 10thers out there, this is for you.
Right.
You can put together your own exchanges, a market of lots of different, and then the insurance companies will come in and they will bid, and if they have the right kinds of plans that have these minimum requirements under federal law, in other words, if you're dying, they can't say, go to hell, then they can be on this exchange, and then someone goes into your state exchange and can compare prices. It's amazing. They're all right there. And you can buy one, and then you get a subsidy. It's this, single payer is better, but this ain't bad.
It's a good step. I could sit here and complain about it for a long time, especially with my background in the insurance industry.
But we're not gonna go there.
I'm not going to go there right now.
Okay, but the thing is that it's a state-run thing.
Right.
And we heard a lot about states saying, we're not going to do this.
Yes, 22 states, in
We
fact.
don't want to do this. South Carolina, of course, John C. Calhoun, South Carolina, the original secessionists, middle finger to the federal government. She's going on South Carolina's. So you go to healthcare.gov, but once you put in your basic information, it hands you off to the state.
Right.
Now, and people who know about computers, they have to be able to talk to each other. It has to be the same format, information, swapping, etc. If you have a state that wants to sabotage, they're not going to be very good about exchanging that information. So South Carolina is going to be the worst state exchange. Nikki Haley was the Attorney General there was one of the people who sued to say that Obamacare was unconstitutional.
Right.
So weeks and weeks and weeks of this. See, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Well, you're using one example. You're using South Carolina. I got so angry. I said, I have insurance. My employer is amazing. We have great insurance.
Right.
But I wanted to sign up just to see.
Right.
15 minutes.
15.
Maryland. Went to healthcare.gov, put in my stuff. Bing, right over to Maryland's. Had all the plans in front of me. I mean, affordable. Told me I could get, a tax credit, some subsidies. And we're talking not a lot of money.
Not a lot of money.
Compared to, the income at, we're in radio. It's not huge incomes, but it was so affordable. I used to have point of service when I was an independent contractor doing legal work. And when I first bought it years ago, it was like $200. I got to tell you, by the time I was done, it was $600-700 a month.
Right.
This was back this is in the $100-200 range.
Right.
15 minutes.
And it turns out that in other states that are actually embracing healthcare and saying, hey, we would like, government healthcare, we would like single payer, but this is a great first step, and we're going to embrace it and make this available to as many people as possible. Like, say, Oregon.
California.
2 weeks, Oregon has cut their uninsured population by 10%.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And this is with Oregon's website still experiencing some glitches.
Sure.
See, the lawmakers and the officials in Oregon said, you know what? The website is still experiencing some glitches, so we're going to give you a different way to sign up. We are going to fast track the system to make sure that if you don't have health care and you're a low-income resident of Oregon, that we are going to make this happen quickly.
It's a difference between facilitation and obstruction. And if you obstruct, of course it's not going to work.
Right.
It's like cutting the brake lines and then saying this car is terrible.
Exactly.
They're sabotaging it. And then saying, see, it's a failure. Well, it's a failure because you caused it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
If you would embrace it, do it. Or not even embrace it. You don't have to say this is the best thing ever, but you know what? I'm going to do my minimal part. At least my minimal part to give this thing a shot, but it's not getting a fair shot in a lot of jurisdictions.
How about saying that there are people in my state that need health coverage And I'm going to make sure that it's available regardless of what I think about the president.
And on top of it, what I think that what will happen, you're seeing in Virginia saying, well, we may want to start expanding Medicaid here. You're going to find that the people in states like South Carolina and the states that aren't accepting it are looking at their friends and talking to their family members in other states saying, how come they got such a good deal? I want that too.
Right.
And that's where the pressure will build. So it's going to take time, and they're going to whine, and there's all kinds of words I could use there, but give it a chance.
Yeah.
Because it's better than what we had before.
Exactly.
And what they want us to go back to is if you get sick, die quickly.
And in these red states that are rejecting the Medicaid expansion and leaving these people in the gaps, I don't care if you're not one of those people. You need to fight.
That's what we're here.
You need to say, I am not going to sit by while people in my state are left without coverage because you don't like the president.
Yeah.
And I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. I don't care what letter is behind the person's name that you elected. You sit here and tell me that those people don't deserve coverage because the governor of your state doesn't like the president.
Richest nation on the earth. We should be able to provide health care as a basic human right.
Right.
Is this the best way? No. Is it better than what was before? Yes. Will it get better? I sure as heck hope so.
It will if we push for it.
I
and
agree.
we can do that. So anyhow, that's our rant on Obamacare and Shane's experience. 15 minutes. And we will be back this time with Justin Duckham, congressional reporter for the Talk Radio News Service. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We'll be right back, so stick around.
I'm David Schuster, and you're listening to my favorite show other than my own, Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-381-4183. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-381-4183. That's 800-381-4183. For $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with, call Big Lou at 800-381-4183. 800-381-4183.
The experts at Web.com want to build your business a successful website for free, just like they did for these Web.com customers.
We've used and looked at other website designers, but there's nobody better than Web.com.
Web.com can have your website built for free and up and running in as little as 7 days. Plus, promote your site on all the major search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing.
If you're in business today and you don't have a web presence, you won't be taken seriously.
Call now to get your website built for free. If after 30 days you're happy with your new website, we'll continue to provide promotion, hosting, support, and maintenance, all for just one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing. Call 855-254-SITE, 855-254-SITE, 855-254-7483, or go to web.com/radio. There is no upfront charge for building the website, after which the ongoing fee applies. Rights to the website are relinquished upon cancellation unless otherwise purchased.
I need to control internet usage in my office.
Do you want to pay a fee for every user?
No.
Do you want to pay extra to protect remote users?
No.
How about a product that's difficult to install and use?
No.
Offshore or automated phone tree support okay?
No.
Then yes, we can help.
The Barracuda Web Filter. Content filtering, application control, and malware protection with no per-user fees. Available as a hardware appliance, virtual appliance, or as a cloud service. And live humans to answer your calls. Try Barracuda Web Filter free. Go to barracuda.com/yes.
We live in a world where entire fortunes can disappear in seconds. There is, however, one investment so safe. No investor has ever lost a dime of principal or a nickel of interest. Municipal bonds backed by the leader in bond insurance, Assured Guaranty. With a quarter-century of experience and $12 billion in claims-paying resources, ask your financial advisor about Assured Guaranty. For investors who embrace possibilities, but invest in certainties.
With your Working Virginia update, I'm Doug Cunningham. As it looks for new ways to grow and to overcome the hurdles for workers who want to be in unions, AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka says that the key is effectively pursuing an agenda of shared prosperity for all American workers.
In order for workers to succeed, in order for workers to have a voice, they have to have a voice at the workplace, they have to have a voice in the economy, they have to have a voice in American politics. We're trying to do all three of those things. We're trying to create an environment where those workers that really want to have a union can have a union. We're trying to create an environment where we join together with our progressive friends to create an economy that doesn't just work for the top 1%, but works for all workers. We call it shared prosperity.
Working Virginia Update, produced by Workers Independent News. I'm Doug Cunningham.
This update made possible by the Office and Professional Employees International Union, ensuring fair treatment, fair wages, and benefits for thousands of working Virginians. Online at opeiu.org.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you're hanging out with us. SoFlo Radio, We Act Radio, or over in the chat room at talkingleft.com. And joining us now is our good friend, Justin Duckham, the congressional reporter for the Talk Radio News Service. You can check it out at talkradionews.com, and you can follow Justin on Twitter and show him some love at jduckham.
No, he didn't just win the Oscar. He's just joining us.
Good morning, Justin. You got fanfare.
I dig that. I want to have that when I enter more rooms. That'd be nice to have.
I think that would be great, and it would be completely appropriate because you are brilliant.
Oh, shucks, thank you.
We were talking before we had you on about how much it cost to keep John Boehner as Speaker, $24 billion. And the question I have for you is, despite that cost,
was he worth it? First of all, was he worth it?
That goes without, I don't think we even need to ask that, but is it going to be enough? Is John Boehner going to still be out as Speaker for allowing this debt limit deal to go through?
Well, it looks like John Boehner is going to continue to be Speaker. Following this vote, we saw a number of people who were typically more conservative, such as Raul Labrador and Paul Gosar of Arizona, come out and say that they actually admired Boehner for his actions during this. They were specifically pointing out to the Speaker's decision to sort of go against their own political instincts and hold a series of votes that led the U.S. to brinksmanship. That included, of course, defunding Obamacare, and then a number of other attempts to try to get Republican concessions by delaying the individual mandate and whatnot. So it looks like the appetite for trying to remove him is probably gone for right now. This could either be because they do genuinely appreciate him, or it could just be a recognition of the political reality that the Republican Party is so split right now that even if they were to find somebody who would be a more conservative speaker among the Tea Party caucus, there's absolutely no guarantee.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We're losing Justin.
Hello, Justin. Justin.
Oh, no.
I think we may have a Skype issue. I'm going to hang up and call Justin back.
Well, the thing is that who the heck would want the job? I mean, I know we've joked on and on and on about Eric Cantor with his shiv, but
Yes.
I don't think he even wants the gig right now.
I can't imagine anybody who would
automated voice. Oh, we're getting his. I think his phone went.
We'll give him a second, and we'll try and call him back.
But he has what he's saying. That I think is that sure you could put a Tea Party person in there,
right?
And they're going to face the same problem. And perhaps there's just saying, you know what, our puppet strings are really working great. Finally, we're getting this guy to do exactly what we want. You know, he's great at shooting ourselves in the foot.
Well,
he's doing a knocking job.
And voice messaging.
We're still getting a voice messaging system.
Okay. Well, Justin's phone maybe his phone died.
Oh no.
We'll see if he messages you back.
That's live radio.
Yes, exactly. Doing it live. Here on Talking
I don't even have that. Darn it.
No worries. But yeah, I mean, who would want that job?
Not me.
And
then that begs the question: why does he still want it? What is it?
Attention?
I realize where that sound's coming from. If you tap the table, it's going to make those springs vibrate. Tap the table. Watch. Listen. Hear it?
Yes. Yes.
New mic arms. So
there's Justin.
That's This Week in Tech Talk. All right.
Justin?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No worries at all. So you were saying about John Boehner and wanting to keep his job?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying at this point, I think a number of conservatives realize that there's no chance that they're going to get one of their guys in that position. And there could be a risk that, there could be moderates like like Peter King, who could make a run for the position and could end up getting Democratic support as we move from Democrats to try to maybe throw a wrench in their process.
That makes sense. I never thought of that, because when you're voting for Speaker of the House, usually the Democrats would vote for Nancy Pelosi, the Republicans would vote for whomever. If the Republicans split, half of them went, let's say, to Eric Cantor, and the other half went to John Boehner, they want to leave him in, the Democrats could come on board and say, no, we're going to put in Pete King. That's hilarious.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, they could, the Democrats, of course, are allowed to vote for their own Speaker of the House. They know that, Nancy Pelosi is not going to get enough to actually be it. So they could, use their impressive whipping operation to try to come up the works.
Now, if you think that's likely, but you're saying that it wouldn't be likely for that to swing the other way, where if Nancy, the Democrats were supporting Nancy Pelosi, that maybe the moderate Republicans would, do you think that there's any chance that that could happen?
That of course is a possibility. It just when you look at the modern Republican Party, it's too split for anybody with any ideology to really win. If it was a coup attempt, it looks like the Democrats could in fact actually fare pretty well if they had a candidate of their own. So I would not rule out any possibility of that, and I think that's a scenario that at this point nobody really wants to see, since this would not just be embarrassing for the conservatives or for Boehner, but this would be this would be a situation that could actually have some serious political risks for the conservative caucus.
So John Boehner's best bet, if we really take this to the logical end, to maintain his speakership at this point is to ingratiate himself with Democrats.
That's what it looks like in order to actually get anything done, because right now it's widely known that he is sort of a sitting duck until 2014. We know that there are situations that are going to be coming up. We know that there's going to be the big push for a larger budget plan. We know that there's going to be a push from immigration reform that, of course, the president and the Democrats in the House are already pushing for. And there's very little that Boehner can really do right now to move that forward. So if he continues to want the job, which it certainly appears that he does, considering all of the concessions that he made, he is not going to be very effective. And, we likely won't see anything actually get done until 2014, when we see somebody who has a little bit more clout than Boehner most likely get voted in.
Well, speaking of 2014 and John Boehner's ineffectiveness as leader, as speaker, what are the chances that because of this whole nonsense and the government shutdown and the debt ceiling, in your opinion, I know we don't have too many polls yet, but do you think Democrats could take back the House in 2014? And then, Nancy Pelosi could be speaker.
She could, if the Democrats had that appetite again, which would be pretty interesting to see how they go, since Democrats aren't immune to personal egos and whatnot. We know that Hoyer for a long time has wanted that position. There has been some polling from public policy polling that shows there are enough races that are pretty competitive. Wherein the Republicans could lose their seat, that the Democrats could take it back. We do know that when they're polled, they were willing to vote for a Democrat once they were reminded that their member had voted for the, shutdown plan. So it's a lot more realistic now than it was a little while ago, since this is something that has,
Uh-oh. Hopefully
we are just having a worst time.
Yes, it's probably on our end because it's probably Skype.
Oh.
Yes, we lost Justin again. But who knows? It could turn out.
We talked about this last week with the
Princeton.edu.
Right,
and
it's
the
election,
gerrymandering.
the consortium saying that this is possible, that we can be doing this.
And do we have Justin back?
That's embarrassing. I'm sorry. It's the 21st century, and cell phones are still not awesome.
Well,
it's because we have a monopolistic telecommunications system in our country that's third world, because that's the way they make the most profits.
Yes.
But there we go again.
It may have nothing to do with your cell phone. It may have to do with our Skype and again the monopoly and
yeah.
internet providing. So, Justin, was it worth it for John Boehner to hold fast against funding the government? We posed the question in an earlier segment, is $24 billion, the cost of the shutdown, worth his speakership?
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly wasn't worth it for the country. Whether or not it was worth it for him remains to be seen. If his main goal was self-preservation, it looks like he won. But as you mentioned, there was a hefty price tag.
Yeah.
It wasn't worth it to me. They got nothing in 16 days other than a big fat bill. And of course it was worth it to him because he didn't have to foot the bill. He didn't have to pay the tab. The rest of us did. And that's what it goes into 2014, because people are going to remember who footed that bill.
Yeah.
Who paid? And we're not just talking in dollars. We're talking in livelihoods. We're talking in people's lives getting radically disrupted and going hungry. I mean, we're talking about the basic necessities here.
Exactly. And what's...
Oh, no, he's one of the most hated men in his own community right now. I mean, Capitol Hill is sort of a close-knit group, and there were a lot of people, of course, affected by the furlough who were none too happy about his reluctance to bring a clean CR, and who are ultimately, at the end of the day, going to be blaming him. So I think, life for him is going to be a little bit harder.
Well, do you think...
Back in his home district? Are you serious? People were ticked at him?
Oh, no. I mean, in D.C.
Okay.
Well, did he learn his lesson? Did the Tea Party learn their lesson? I mean, we're only, a couple months away from the next deadline. Is there anything in the back channels of this is going to happen again?
There's the Tea Party response has been coming up. It's been sort of brewing that, the Republican leadership's essentially sabotaged what they thought was a sound political strategy, wherein they were going to try to force the president's hand and bring this up to the brink, and then get some major Obamacare concessions. And if it wasn't for those, rascally Republican leaders who were trying to avoid default, they would have gotten everything that they had wanted. So if that mentality leads up until January and February, it looks like we could have this again, and that's a very dangerous and real possibility.
I got to say I'm torn, because I don't want that harm to the country, God forbid the world economy, but I want people to see exactly what these people are doing to our nation. Justin, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sorry about it. The technical difficulties, I'm sure, are on our end, so I'm very sorry about that. But thank you so much for your insight and your brilliant reporting on Congress, as usual.
Thank you, guys. You're the best. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Justin Duckham, everybody, congressional reporter for the Talk Radio News Service. You can check it out at talkradionews.com, and you can follow Justin at J Duckham. He says some smart stuff.
He does. He gets me thinking. You extrapolate it out. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He
never the moderate Republican speaker just never. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
It would be really interesting to see what happens, and I think what happens there could really dictate where Congress can go and what they can pull off and achieve in the future. So something to watch for. And remember that Justin Duckham said it here first.
He did.
Yes.
He did.
You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we have lots more in store. Still have Farron Cousins of Ring of Fire Radio and TV coming up soon, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This is going to be fun. It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Terrestrial radio, they don't want us or yous around no more, so
they hit us, so we hit them back.
SoFloRadio.com.
It's Thursday, October 17, 2013.
Thank you. Thanks for your service. You protect the air we breathe and the water our children drink, and you push the boundaries of science and space. Thank you. What you do is important. And don't let anybody else tell you different.
Hour-long national shutdown is over for now, and environmental services and protections are returning. Plus,
it has turned into the day we've been dreading since the weather first started warming up.
Australia erupts into freakishly early bushfire season. And
most of the Middle Eastern oil producers have reduced overall production.
and cut off their shipments of oil to the United States.
The 40th anniversary of the Arab oil embargo.
All of that and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The summer of '73 made many Americans realize that the fuel shortage was a real thing. Some station owners charge as much as $1 for a gallon of gas.
As much as $1? Man, do I wish we were doing the Green News Report in 1973. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, the shutdown is over. The threat of default is over. So great. What do I do with my trunk full of gold bullion, my basement full of ammo, and my garage full of survival seeds?
Oh, don't worry. Preppers find something to be worried about.
All right. 6 weeks from now, I think we're going to do this all again. So let's hope the seeds last that long. What do you have for us today?
Let's start with the shutdown.
I think the American people during the shutdown had a chance to get some idea of all the things, large and small, that government does that make a difference in people's lives.
That was President Obama announcing that he had signed the legislation to reopen the government and raise the debt ceiling on Thursday after congressional Republicans gave up their bitter budget fight. First, it was about shutting down Obamacare, and then it became a full list of Republican ransom demands, which expanded rapidly to include their fossil fuel wish list, as helpfully explained here by MSNBC's Rachel Maddow.
Can we force the Keystone Pipeline to be open by doing this? No. Expanded oil drilling. Please, can we have expanded oil drilling? Then we'll open the government. Democrats said no. Stuff it. The EPA's pollution rules for new coal-fired power plants. No, Democrats said no. Then the Republicans demanded that the administration get rid of coal ash regulations. Democrats said no. Of all of these things that they demanded, they got none of them. None.
Totally worth it.
Yeah, apparently. It also took a $24 billion bite out of the economy over the last 16 days. But the legislation also contained some completely unrelated amendments with an environmental flavor.
Funding for flood recovery in Colorado. Funding for recovery from this year's wildfires in the West. Wildfire prevention money as well. There was funding for LIHEAP, which is the program that helps low-income families buy fuel oil or otherwise pay their heating bills over the winter. It's a very important program. There's funding for a construction project on the lower Ohio River in Illinois and Kentucky.
So Republicans demanded all of this environmental stuff get cut. Turns out they put in all this environmental stuff at the end.
Yeah, but at least it's good stuff that, helps people who are just coming out of natural disasters.
We'll see how good it is. I know the Republicans are already calling that dam on the Ohio River the Kentucky kickback.
Yes, to Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Right. I love when they do that. It's the Kentucky kickback.
But you know who's not happy about the shutdown ending?
Glenn Beck?
Crabs.
Same thing.
Opening day of the commercial crab fishing season was halted in Alaska because federal fishing regulations were furloughed and couldn't issue permits. Now it's back and crab is once again on the menu.
Delicious.
Meanwhile, in Australia...
In every direction tonight, bushfires are either destroying homes or forcing anxious residents to pack up and run.
It's not even summer yet down under, and Australia is already embroiled in a, quote, freakishly early bushfire season. At least 90 bushfires broke out this week in New South Wales alone. Australia just came through its hottest 12-month period on record, and officials warn this is shaping up to be one of the worst bushfire seasons in memory. Finally,
many independent gas stations had to close down on weekends. Some station owners charge as much as $1 for a gallon of gas.
40 years ago this week was the start of the Arab oil embargo when OPEC retaliated against the U.S. support of Israel during the Yom Kippur War in October 1973. The 6-month-long embargo led to gas shortages, long lines, and sent the U.S. economy into a tailspin. Since then, every U.S. president has promised to push for renewable energy and energy independence, but even with the boom in unconventional oil and gas production today, we still import about 40% of our oil.
And as it turns out, gas did rise above $1 a gallon, as I hear.
Yeah, surprisingly, with increased production, gas prices have not come down.
They keep going up. Imagine that. For much more on that scam and all of the others that we covered today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. You can find us and like us on the Facebook and follow us 24/7 on the Twitters at Green News Report. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
The oil man.
Broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., this is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Big thanks to Justin Duckham, the congressional reporter for the Talk Radio News Service. Be sure to show him some love on Twitter at jduckham. And we were talking a bit about 2014 and upcoming elections. And if the Supreme Court has their way, I'm just going to go ahead and
They usually do get their way,
yeah.
considering kings, queens.
I'm just going to go ahead and assume we know how at least 4 members of the court are going to rule on McCutcheon v. FEC. We meant to talk about this last week.
But we were jam-packed.
Yes, we had a few guests.
Jam-packed.
And this is a very important case that we need to pay attention to. It is essentially Citizens United on steroids. And Mitch McConnell had a personal vested interest in getting even more billionaires to purchase politicians.
We did talk about in the preview that essentially, Mitch McConnell himself had his own attorney in there arguing as an amicus.
Yes.
But McCutcheon, Citizens United, of course, was indirect expenditures. Indirect expenditure being, in an election, I can pour a bunch of money into the election, I just can't give it right to a party or a candidate or a PAC. I can give it to a super PAC. It's an indirect expenditure. McCutcheon, this is the next step in terms of campaign finance. In the campaign finance rules, we all know that you can't give a $1 million check directly to Mitch McConnell.
Right.
There's a $2,600 per election cycle limit.
Per candidate. And there's another limit.
There are other limits. $5,000 to a PAC.
Right.
Those were not at issue in McCutcheon. That's going to be the last frontier. I'm sure we'll get to that next term or the term after that.
Right.
But what this is about is that individuals, and another way to keep money from corrupting politics, not doing such a great job after Citizens United, but to make it worse, they want to get rid of what's called a aggregate limit. Mr. McCutcheon, who is a wealthy Alabama businessman, wants to give more than, I think it's $123,000 per election cycle. And his argument was, if I give $2,600 to Mitch and a bunch of other candidates, at some point I'm going to hit that, and then I can't give to the next one because I've reached my aggregate limit.
Right, and my free speech is violated.
My speech is violated because I can't give $3.5 million, which if McCutcheon wins, an individual person, and this is the Solicitor General who is defending this part of the law. Believe it or not, this is not McCain-Feingold.
Right.
This is a law that was enacted in 1976, I want to say, and then it was
upheld
in Buckley v. Vallejo.
Right.
Now, Buckley v. Vallejo, okay, welcome back to the weeds, dealt with two types of campaign finance. Money spent by a candidate, because back then there was a law that said candidates can't spend more than X number of dollars.
Right.
And the Supreme Court said, nuh-uh, you can't do that. That is a violation. This is when they said money is speech, and if you say a candidate can only spend X number of dollars, you're limiting that candidate's speech. Because they had enacted a law back then and said, we want our elections to be more fair. If some guy can spend, $10 million and another person can only spend $100,000, who's going to win? We'd like our elections to actually be on the issues, not on how much money you have. The Supreme Court said, nah, we're not going to do that. But there was another part of it saying the amount you can give directly to a candidate, and they said, nah, we're gonna limit that because you could corrupt that candidate.
Right.
They want to get rid of that second part. They want to essentially overrule the second part of Buckley v. Vallejo.
Right. And this wouldn't change the limit, at least for the moment, of how much they can give directly to a candidate, but they could say
extrapolate next time.
They could say, okay, RNC, here's $1 million check.
Yes. They could even worse. They could say, Mr. Speaker, here's a check for $3.5 million. You go ahead and give it to whomever you want.
Exactly. Wink, wink,
wink.
Nudge, nudge.
And they're saying, and there's the argument by McCutcheon saying, well, we're not telling him how to direct this money.
Right.
You know, and it can't go more than, you know, a couple thousand here and a couple thousand there. But what the Solicitor General was saying was, hey, when you give a $3.5 million check to John Boehner might feel like he owes you something.
Just maybe.
And that's the corrupting influence.
Right. It's essentially legalized money laundering in the political process.
Right. And then you have Justice Scalia saying, well, he didn't actually say the words Citizens United, but he said, well, we allow unlimited amounts in indirect contributions, and that could, you know, corrupt this. He called it, people would show, I can't remember the word now. It's hilarious. Instead of corruption, he called it gratitude. Gratitude.
They're very thankful for that $3 million.
Well, they're thankful by writing your own personal bill.
Right.
That benefits you and deregulates and et cetera. But he was saying, well, indirectly, you can. So what's the difference? In other words, since we have Citizens United, why not just blow the doors open? And they'll do that again. If this, and it probably will. And believe it or not, this is going to be, a lot of people talk about Justice Kennedy being the guy who is often the
swing vote.
The swing vote. And meaning that he doesn't move back and forth, but when it's a 5-4 decision, it's his that decides which side it goes.
Right.
It was Roberts, in listening to the arguments, who really, I got the feeling, could go either way. I know which way he's going to go. I'm 90% sure. Because what he was doing during the argument is he was really concerned with McCutcheon's argument that once you donate to X number of Congress people who are running, or X number of candidates, you can donate to 9, but you can't donate to the 10th. And the fact that you couldn't donate to the 10th bothered him. He's like, how do you fix that without ending up with a $3.5 million check to John Boehner?
You don't donate 26%, the maximum allowed, to each candidate.
Well, that was the argument the Solicitor General Varelli gave, but then you're still limiting speech, are you not? So he kept asking, how do we split this baby? And no one came up with that answer. So like the Supreme Court always does, they're going to say, well, we really can't limit speech, so we're going to blow the doors open in Congress. You go fix it. I think that's the way it's going to come out. You fix the $3.5 million thing, but we're going to fix the donating to the 10th candidate. We can't possibly inhibit that.
Well, and another case that occurred this week.
But consider this. That's how people like Ted Cruz are going to get in office.
Right.
You know, this is serious.
Yes.
And then the next time it comes around, it's going to be Mitch McConnell saying, I would like that $3.5 million check personally, please. And Justice Scalia is going to say, well, we did it in Citizens United and we did it in McCutcheon. Why not take that last step? And then it's done. It's over. It's an oligopoly and we are done.
I mean, we're not far from it now.
Right.
That
concerns me greatly.
Right. Another case that concerns me greatly, affirmative action.
Sure.
And this is the case of, is it Schuett? Schuett v. Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action. And in this case, if I'm understanding correctly, Michigan made a law saying it is illegal to discriminate on the basis of race. However,
no.
they're trying to take...
Back it up.
Okay.
Michigan did not make a law. Michigan had a proposition, Prop 2.
Thank you.
And the people of Michigan, I think it was a 51%, voted for Prop 2, which Prop 2 amended the Michigan state constitution to make it unlawful to use race in considering public jobs, applications to state universities, etc., awarding contracts with the state. Affirmative action. They made affirmative action in the state of Michigan illegal by amending their constitution. And the question was, you know, this is a big deal, amending the Constitution. The only way that you can overrule a majority, essentially, changing their own state constitution is to say it violates the federal constitution. So that was before the court. Does Michigan's amending their constitution to get rid of affirmative action, does that violate the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution?
And this one concerns me because it's a hard case to argue.
And there you have the tyranny of the majority again.
Right.
The very thing that our Constitution is meant, and our courts are meant to do, is to protect. When there's in a democracy, you're ruled by majority.
Right.
But sometimes the majority is racist. Sometimes the majority, a lot of time, do bad things to the minority of people, and they can do that with their vote, and they did that here.
Right.
And our Constitution is set up to fix that. Our courts are there to fix that. So this is the right forum. It's the wrong set of judges. And I would say that they're probably going to say, this is the democratic process. It didn't change I'm not going to get into the doctrine. It's really extra wonky. And I don't understand all of it. But in other words, they're going to say this is okay. But I haven't heard anyone talk about extrapolating this out. We had the people, a majority of the people of the state of Michigan, amending their constitution to deprive a minority of a right they previously enjoyed.
Right. Sounds familiar.
Think Prop 8 in California.
Mm-hmm.
Prop 8 in California, of course, was equal marriage rights for same-sex couples. The Supreme Court, when that whole case went down, hey, we won, everyone can get married in California. But the Supreme Court, the way they ruled, they never actually took that issue up.
Right.
They just said there wasn't standing. Remember I was talking about standing, so much
right.
standing. They said we don't have standing, so they let the lower court ruling stand. Now, there are marked differences, but the same basic thing goes in here. They actually kind of decided that case. Now, it's a different standard, and I'll get into that in a second. But you have a majority of people voting to amend their constitution to deny a minority a previous right that they once held. That's the same thing as Prop 8.
Right.
There are lots of states in the marriage right.
We were just talking about Pennsylvania and North Carolina today.
Right. So that's one way that the battle is going on, amending state constitutions to deny same-sex couples equal rights. Will this Michigan case, in a lot of judges' minds, become the precedent for those cases, not just affirmative action, but for also same-sex marriage? Now, there's a marked difference, and I need to put this out there. When we're dealing with a constitutional right, all of our rights under the Constitution can be regulated. I don't care. You can't yell fire in a movie theater, so our First Amendment rights, all gun rights, etc.
Right.
Certain rights have certain levels that they have to reach in order to be constitutional. The lowest being rational basis, the intermediate, scrutiny, and then strict. Racial preferences and racial discrimination require strict scrutiny, whereas the argument before the Supreme Court was that same-sex marriage is intermediate. So there is a marked difference in this case in terms of the standards that will be applied, but it could set up some precedent because we had the Supreme Court talking about same-sex marriage in terms of
equal rights
and equal protection. We had Kennedy talking about that, so this does set that up, and it does set some precedent far beyond affirmative action.
It's just something we absolutely need to watch for.
Yeah, be on the lookout.
Yeah. And
it's a bolo.
That is not all.
Constitutional bolo. I like that.
I like that too. That is not all of the Supreme Court news this week. We're going to talk about one other
They had their first decision this week.
Did they already?
Yeah, they already had a decision. Yeah, if you go over to Talk Radio News, I wrote about the case Madigan versus Levin, and it was called Not Ready for the Supreme Court. This case went sideways, and they just dismissed it out of order. It was hilarious. It was, at one point, one of the persons arguing, one of the attorneys said, was just apologizing to Scalia. We should have done a better job. I'm sorry, Your Honor. We should have done a better job. That's how bad. That was the first case argued this term, and it's already been dismissed as improvidently granted.
Interesting, considering that the Supreme Court grants their own certiorari.
Yeah, I'd like to know who the four with egg on their faces are.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not all the Supreme Court news this week. We're going to talk about one other story in just a few minutes. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we have Farron Cousins of Ring of Fire Radio coming up in just a few minutes, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
They're messing with my shows!
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
With your Working Virginia update, I'm Doug Cunningham. As it looks for new ways to grow and to overcome the hurdles for workers who want to be in unions, AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka says that the key is effectively pursuing an agenda of shared prosperity for all American workers.
In order for workers to succeed, in order for workers to have a voice, they have to have a voice at the workplace. They have to have a voice in the economy. They have to have a voice in American politics. We're trying to do all three of those things. We're trying to create an environment where those workers workers that really want to have a union can have a union. We're trying to create an environment where we join together with our progressive friends to create an economy that doesn't just work for the top 1%, but works for all workers. We call it shared prosperity.
Working Virginia Update, produced by Workers Independent News. I'm Doug Cunningham.
This update made possible by the Office and Professional Employees International Union, ensuring fair treatment, fair wages, and benefits for thousands of working Virginians. Online at opeiu.org.
Rates, policy forms, and availability vary by state. Why spend more than you have to on your life insurance? Our free service can save you a fortune on your life insurance in just one short phone call. I'm Byron Udell, founder of AccuQuote. At AccuQuote, we monitor hundreds of top-rated life insurance products to find you the lowest prices. For example, a healthy 40-year-old can protect his family with $500,000 of 10-year level term for less than $21 a month. Rates for women are even lower. We even have term life policies that guarantee your money back even if you don't die. AccuQuote makes it easy to find the best values. Just call 800-654-2071. Since 1986, we've helped hundreds of thousands of people save a fortune on their life insurance. How much can you save? Just call AccuQuote at 800-654-2071. Call now for your free quote. 800-654-2071. That's 800-654-2071.
Attention men, if you're urinating more often or waking at night to urinate, we want to send you a free bottle of Beta Prostate. Beta Prostate is our best-selling supplement, made with a natural ingredient that supports healthy urine flow and more complete bladder emptying. It's also been shown to reduce waking at night from the urge to urinate. To find out how to get your free bottle, just call 800-520-6095. Since Beta Prostate debuted, our warehouse has shipped over 2 million bottles. But there are still men who have yet to discover this amazing supplement. That's why for a limited time, you can try a full 30-day supply of Beta Prostate free. You only pay shipping and handling. This free Beta Prostate giveaway is only available while supplies last. And once it's gone, it's gone. Just call 800-520-6095. That's 800-520-6095. Call 800-520-6095.
Jay Farner here with Quicken Loans. Here are 2 simple words that should make you reconsider waiting to buy a home. Buying power. Let's say you can afford a monthly mortgage payment, including principal and interest, of around $1,350. With today's rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage of 4.375%, APR 4.64%, that payment could support a $270,000 mortgage. But if you wait and rates tick up to around 6%, that same $1,350 mortgage payment, including principal and interest, may only be able to support a $225,000 mortgage. That's $45,000 worth of home that you're missing out on by waiting. That's buying power. And for 3 years in a row now, J.D. Power & Associates has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Give Quicken Loans a call today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com and maximize your buying power.
For J.D. Power & Associates award information, visit jdpower.com. Payment example excludes taxes and insurance calls. For cost information, equal housing lender license in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Shano, thank you for that wonderful description of some scary cases.
What? It's scary. The cases aren't scary. The decisions are. Yeah.
The makeup of the Supreme Court is.
It's more than that. It's more than that. It's the we talked about this when we talked about McCutcheon as a preview, that you've got the executive branch, the Solicitor General, representing the executive, defending the law against the legislative branch.
Right.
So we got 3 branches. Remember this from old civics class if you took it, or 3 branches. We had 2 of them arguing, and so who's the most powerful of them all?
Supreme Court.
Right. So 9 people have a whole heck of a lot of power.
Hence why we call them the kings and queens of America. And those kings and queens have decided to take up another important question.
This term.
It is a challenge to the EPA's authority, the Environmental Protection Agency, and whether or not they can regulate greenhouse gases in a certain way. Now, this court did not decide to hear a challenge on the broad question, whether or not the EPA can...
Baloney. I'm sorry. You may be reading this from an article, but think Citizens United.
I know, but
Citizens United was about a 60-second ad to play on TV during an election cycle. I will almost guarantee you this case is going to go much further than we think at this point.
It doesn't
because
mean
the Republicans hate the EPA.
Right.
They hate the EPA. They want to defund it.
It doesn't mean that the judges won't take it further, but they did not take up the broad challenge. What they took up, and this is according to Mother Jones.
Oh no, I agree. I would bet you the person who wrote this would say this is what the question is, because I've read the question in the court, the orders.
Right.
But come on.
I don't even understand how there's a case in controversy here, because
it seems pretty obvious.
It seems pretty obvious. The question the court will consider is whether the EPA can use greenhouse gas emissions as a criteria when issuing permits for plants and factories to either build new plants or to expand existing plants. Essentially, right now, the EPA can limit who receives permits to build new factories based on how much carbon pollution they're going to pump into our atmosphere. And the case brought by a whole group of industrial corporations is challenging that the EPA should be able to use greenhouse gas emissions as that criteria, whether or not they should be able to consider this when granting permits.
This is the question according to the order list.
Okay.
Whether EPA permissively determined that its regulation of greenhouse gas emissions from new motor vehicles triggered permitting requirements under the Clean Air Act for statutory sources that emit greenhouse gases. Motor vehicles.
That's completely different than what I have here in the case National Association of Manufacturing.
This is Utility Air Regulatory Group for EPA, American Chemical Council for EPA, Energy Intensive Manufacturer versus EPA, Southern Legal Foundation versus EPA, Texas et al., hilarious, versus EPA, Chamber of Commerce versus EPA. These were what certiorari was granted in the order October 15th, 2013. The following question. Limited to whether EPA permissibly determined that its regulation of greenhouse gas emissions from new motor vehicles triggered permitting requirements under the Clean Air Act for statutory sources that emit greenhouse gases. End quote.
Can you put that into normal English for us?
Can the EPA regulate emissions on cars under EPA regulations?
Well, then that's a completely different question than what Mother Jones says it. And the people at Mother Jones are pretty smart.
Are you sure you have the right case?
I'm sure.
What's the case that they're citing? We probably should have gotten together about this before this segment. We're going to work it out on air.
It's the National Association of Manufacturers v. EPA.
I don't see that case here in the cert granted. Maybe that's a different case, I think.
This is October 15th?
I'm going to have to look into it more, but when I read this question is whether or not the EPA can regulate emissions.
Well, and the interesting part about all of this, as if right on time.
Permits requirement for, they're permitting.
To build new factories or expand existing ones.
I don't see how gas emissions from motor vehicles. I get it. Okay, this makes sense now. All right. In other words, the EPA is given the authority to regulate greenhouse gas emissions from new motor vehicles. They've extrapolated that out to permitting requirements for new factories.
Interesting.
There we go.
Okay.
We worked that out in here. I'm sorry, everybody. This is one case that, while I knew that the certiorari was granted, I didn't look at the paperwork.
You've been a little busy.
Yeah, with the other cases. But so essentially what EPA has done is it's sought to use that regulatory authority they have over car emissions to therefore apply it to factories.
And the factories are saying that they shouldn't be allowed to do so.
So that's interesting. That's an interesting
comes
question.
Right as the World Health Association, World Health Organization has definitively linked air pollution with cancer.
Yeah.
Definitively linked. So these businesses are saying, right as this news comes out saying air pollution causes cancer, it's definitive. They have the scientific evidence to back it up. And these companies are saying, I don't care. I should be able to pollute because I want to build a building.
And the Supreme Court will say, I don't care either. What's the authority granted to the EPA by Congress?
Right. So it may not challenge the EPA's overall authority to regulate air pollution, but this is a serious chink in the armor.
You're right. It's how far that authority goes and how they've used the authority granted to cover other things.
And
and we certainly don't have a Congress that's going to expand EPA authority right now.
Right.
Wow.
And once you weaken those regulatory powers, there are some serious things we need to worry about. So
Talking Left, we will work out the wonk on air. Hey,
Anyhow.
it worked. Ha, get it?
Anyhow, we got to run to a break. We have some other environmental news that you need to know about. We're going to talk
Talking about big
that
corporations
next.
polluting.
Yes, just a few of them lately. You're listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, now with 100% more wonk. And we'll be right back.
Hey, it's Hal Sparks from the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide, and this is Talking Left.
How's this for irony? Ronald Reagan, who is worshipped as the supreme deity by small government anti-spending zealots, not only has a government office building in Washington named for him, but it's the biggest and costliest one ever built. The only face-saving factor in this sardonic incongruity is that managers of the Reagan building have embraced a right-wing, laissez-faire concept that the Gipper enthusiastically championed: privatization of government jobs. However, that hasn't worked out to be a positive for his legacy, since Reagan's edifice now stands as a model of private profiteering on the backs of workers. In effect, corporate contractors are using privatization and our tax dollars to transform America into a low-wage nation of gross inequality. The building is public property, but its food concessions have been turned over to such multi-billion-dollar fast food chains as Subway. Not only do they pay low wages with no benefits, but they're also being charged with, quote, serious, willful, and chronic wage theft. In particular, workers in the food court have filed formal complaints with the Labor Department documenting that while work weeks of 60, 70, and even 80 hours are common, they're never paid overtime. Not only is this a rank violation of our fair labor laws, but the practice also means they're being paid less than the minimum wage. This is Jim Hightower saying, come on, even Reagan favored at least a minimal level of decency, fairness, and respect for workers. Where's the morality in CEOs grabbing tax dollars to help subsidize their lavish executive pay packages, then turning around and stiffing their own workers in our name? To help counter this despicable corporate conversion of government into a force for poverty jobs, contact Good Jobs Nation at www.goodjobsnation.org.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, the Workers' Independent News Service. I'm Jesse Russell. Sanitation workers in Montgomery County, Maryland, extended a strike on Thursday seeking better wages and more affordable health care. The striking sanitation workers are from 2 of the region's 3 sanitation companies, Potomac Disposal and Unity Disposal. This is the second walkout from the Potomac Disposal workers in 2 months. The previous strike was due to the company allegedly intimidating workers by threatening Latino workers with immigration enforcement. The company said the timing of asking employees to re-verify their immigration status was strictly coincidental, and they were following the advice of an attorney. Under the Affordable Care Act, about 25 states have accepted billions in federal funding to expand Medicaid. It means millions of people will have access to health care who previously didn't. Among the states who aren't yet moving forward is Virginia, but a bipartisan commission is studying the issue and will make a recommendation about the future of the program to the state legislature. From Richmond, Catherine Kump reports.
The only public hearing scheduled by the Medicaid Innovation and Reform Commission drew a standing room only crowd at the state capitol. Vanessa Hale was 78th in line to speak. A single mother, Hale says it's been critical for the health of her 10-year-old son.
You can't put a cost on the life of a child.
Hale's also an outreach worker for the Blue Ridge Medical Center and says over the years she's seen a tremendous need for affordable health insurance for her clients.
Almost all of them are working poor. They would buy insurance if it existed at an affordable level for them. And unfortunately, when they don't have insurance and can't afford to go to the doctor, they don't until they have to go to the emergency room.
Representatives of the state's biggest hospitals and health systems share this concern about the use of emergency department visits in lieu of primary and specialty care. Cheryl Garland represents Virginia Commonwealth University's health system.
Last year, over 60% of our ED visits for uninsured patients were avoidable. That is, they were visits that could have been effectively provided in a primary care office.
The conservative group Americans for Prosperity has been fighting Medicaid expansion in the state, and their presence was seen by dozens of activists wearing green T-shirts. But a poll released Wednesday shows that more than half of registered voters in the state support expanding the program. Virginia's Medicaid Innovation and Reform Commission is expected to issue its recommendation by the end of the year. Catherine Komp, Richmond, Virginia.
You've been listening to WIN, the Workers' Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you are checking us out. SoFlo Radio, We Act Radio, 1480 AM in DC, or maybe hanging out in the chat room with us over at TalkingLeft.com. Joining us now is the one and only Farron Cousins, the producer of Ring of Fire Radio and the editor of Trial Lawyer Magazine. Of course, you can check out Ring of Fire at ringoffireradio.com on Free Speech TV and radio networks around the country. And you can follow Farron on Twitter at Farron Balanced.
I love that Twitter handle so much.
Yes,
it's my favorite.
Probably the best Twitter handle I think I've ever heard. Farron, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Danielle and Shane. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. We saw a great article right at Ring of Fire. People can go and check it out there about BP hiring online trolls. Now, we have heard, about this process so many times before, especially in the radio industry, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But it appears, if I'm reading this correctly, now BP is using the same tactic, essentially paying people to fight environmentalists and those who care about the environment?
They are, and this is, in the last few months, BP has just launched this massive PR blitz, basically trying to paint every victim down here on the Gulf Coast as the enemy. BP wants to paint themselves as the victim. They say, look, we have all of this fraud happening in this claims process, and everybody's attacking us, but look how horrible these citizens are. And keep in mind, these are citizens who some of them have lost their entire way of life. Our entire ecosystem down here has been destroyed. And BP is out there taking out full-page ads in Washington Post and the New York Times saying that the BP Corporation is the victim. And now they've taken that one step further, and they're bringing it online. They're going on Facebook, on this BP America Facebook page, which is run by this disgusting PR group, Ogilvy and Mather. And basically anybody who comes on there saying that, BP is not paying claims properly, they're not making things right for those of us down here on the coast, these same troll people, it'll be the same users every time, begin to personally attack, threaten, demean, post these racist and sexist comments about these users on this BP Facebook page. And we, at Ring of Fire, we actually had a whistleblower reach out to us from the Government Accountability Project, who gave us just this treasure trove of information, of screenshots and usernames and all sorts of over the next few weeks, hopefully will be able to post some of those and share them. But this is a really sick tactic, and there's almost no question at all that BP and Ogilvy are behind this.
Now, this is all about keeping the opposition quiet, keeping those who question climate science deniers, those who want BP to be held accountable, keeping them quiet, keeping them intimidated from posting online and expressing their views, their opinions, sharing science. Is that correct? I mean, that's essentially who they're targeting, correct?
It is, and this is a very common tactic, especially for environmentalists. I do writing over at desmogblog.com, and I've been informed by my editor over there a few times that they track IP addresses occasionally just to see where people are coming from, and I've had numerous people from Koch Industries reading some of my pieces. I've had articles written about me by these oil industry front groups, attacking me, attacking my intelligence. If they knew any more about me, I'm sure they'd go after me. But this is a very real thing, this online astroturfing, where they're just, basically ruining people's lives. As in the case with this BP issue, they have actually, the trolls from BP have gotten so bad that what they'll do is they'll post pictures of child molesters that have the same name as whoever this user is, and try to this Facebook page or this forum or this listserv or whatever, that's who this person is. They're going to say, don't listen to this environmentalist because they're a child molester. Proof. It's despicable. I can't give another word to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, that is scary. It can have a really profound, horrible impact on somebody's life who is just trying to protect the environment. Just want to remember everybody, we're speaking with Farron Cousins, the producer of Ring of Fire Radio and Ring of Fire TV, and the editor of Trial Lawyer Magazine.
And sometimes guest hosts.
Yeah. How is this legal? I mean, it seems to me like this should be something that's against the law. How are they getting away with this, or is it just that they haven't been investigated well enough yet?
Well, the story is just now starting to emerge, literally within the last 6 days. So we are hoping that by getting this message out and by having these brave whistleblowers like the woman from the Government Accountability Project reach out to us or reach out to anybody, we can get this story out there, and we can hold BP and this group Ogilvy and Mather responsible for this, because this is cyberbullying at its worst. You can't get online and call somebody a child molester because they're upset that BP destroyed their way of life. I mean, that's not not something we can do in America.
Right. Couldn't somebody sue for slander or libel at that point? I mean, I don't know the law. I know I'm sitting here with you, an attorney, and Shane with a law degree, and I'm the novice here. How is that not illegal?
Well, for all intents and purposes, as long as what the information we're getting from GAP is concerned, this does appear to be illegal. And it could be commissioned by BP. We don't have confirmation of that completely. Or this could be a few rogue people who are really just diehard BP fans, which seems incredibly unlikely. I mean,
it's so hard to tie it back to the parent company, especially when you talk about the internet and getting to the actual people who posted it. There's international things. So this is one of those, the anonymity of the internet. Isn't this true, Farron? Would make it so much easier to take these gutter shots, these, to fire without risk of having any liability in that sense.
Exactly. There's almost no paper trail that can be found. But, if you look at the history of this group, this Ogilvy and Mather, who's handling BP's PR, excuse me, they did BP's massive rebranding effort back in 2012 when they changed their name to Beyond Petroleum. And they've been running BP's Facebook page since the first days of the oil spill. Well, this group, I don't know if you're familiar with the history at all, but they were the big ones who came to the defense and worked on all the positive PR for the tobacco industry. They were, sending out press releases and flooding op-ed pages with these phonied up stories about how workplace smoking and indoor smoking doesn't affect your health. What it does, what's making people sick, is what they call the sick building syndrome. Now, it's not the tobacco smoke that you're next to all day long in this closed-in, walled-off office. It's the fact that there's mold in the wall. That's where your lung disease is coming from. And so that's a little bit about Ogilvy. They also, just a couple of years ago, they had 2 people sent to prison for defrauding the government. So this is a criminal enterprise. I mean, they've had charges filed. They've paid massive hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines in recent years. So I would not put anything past this group. They're the king of dirty tricks. They learned it from the tobacco industry, and now they're using this for BP.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of when we're kids, our parents always tell us, you're only as good as those you associate with because you get lumped in. If BP didn't want that bad image, didn't want to be called out for harassing environmentalists or victims of the BP oil spill, they shouldn't be associating at all with a group that has a history of doing such things. I find it also very interesting. Just this week, there was a 4,000-pound tar mat found in the Gulf in the wake of Tropical Storm Karen. And in the article, I'm reading about it, and it says, BP has essentially stopped searching for oil spills or any remaining oil as of this year. It would be nice, in my opinion, if they had, continued that effort, spent money there, instead of paying online trolls and criminal PR companies to wage a war against environmentalists. Wouldn't that be money better spent?
It is. They've spent hundreds of millions of dollars, since the April 2010 oil spill on public relations alone. And as I mentioned earlier, they're taking out full-page ads in Washington Post. I've never done that, but I imagine that's not cheap.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they're saying, no, Mr. Sixth-generation shrimper on the Gulf Coast who no longer has a way of life, the only thing you've ever done, the only thing your family's ever done, we're not going to pay your $10,000 claim. I mean, that is what is happening. BP is willing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars of PR, but they're not going to pay out these claims to the people down here who have nothing. I mean, they've been left with nothing. Our ecosystem has not recovered.
Right.
I get passionate about this because I can look out my window that I'm sitting right in front of, and about 100 yards from me is the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, I completely understand. I am a Florida native and third-generation Floridian, so it is very near and dear to me as well. What can people listening do to help get the word out about this, help fight back against these trolls? Should they be patrolling websites and taking on these people, or from the threats and stuff, is that maybe too far and putting themselves at risk?
I would never advocate putting yourself at risk. I think the best thing to do, if you ever come across anything that looks questionable, if somebody is making horrible accusations about somebody, take a screenshot and send it to one of these, Government Accountability Project. It is a great group. They will help you, or any kind of whistleblower organization. Don't get involved if you don't have to, and certainly if it's happening to you, take a screenshot of it, write it down, write down usernames, find out everything you can, and try to get somebody involved in this. Get the story out there. Draw attention to it. That's the only thing. This pressure from the outside is the only thing that's going to put a stop to this.
And every time you see a BP ad and they say they've invested more in the United States than anywhere else, know that it's in legal fees and trolls, not anything good.
Well, I would not want to be on the receiving end of angering and getting you and Pap and Kennedy and everybody on my bad side. So thank goodness you guys are looking into this and bringing it to everybody's attention. Farron, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for the amazing work that everybody at Ring of Fire does to, fight things like this. It's really important.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Farron Cousins, everybody. The best Twitter name on earth, Farron Balanced, producer of Ring of Fire Radio, editor of Trial Lawyer Magazine. All those links will be up with the blog post after the show. You're listening to Talking Left, and we'll be right back.
It is smooth, cool, and oh so sophisticated.
I'll just stick with my beer.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
If
If you're struggling to pay or haven't been making your student loan payments, listen carefully to this urgent alert. Have you been out of school for 10 or more years and you're still making your student loan payments? Are your student loans past due or even in default? Can't go back to school because of an old student loan problem? Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. One quick 10-minute call could help you solve your student loan problems. So call right now. Not available in all states. Payments may vary based on income. 800-292-3027. 800-292-3027. 800-292-3027. 800-292-3027.
In this new global economy, each investor has to find their own path between reward and regret. But there is one investment so safe, no investor has ever lost a dime of principal or interest. Municipal bonds insured by Assured Guarantee. Backed by a quarter-century of experience and $12 billion in claims-paying resources. Ask your financial advisor about municipal bonds insured by Assured Guarantee. For investors who embrace possibilities, but invest in certainties.
Is breakfast really the most important meal of the day? At Buffalo Wild Wings, we think a case can be made for lunch. Think about it. Award-winning hand-spun wings in 16 signature sauces and 5 seasonings, Buffalitos, wraps, burgers, and salads. Yeah, we're thinking that's a pretty good argument. Now throw in the fact that we've got over 50 big screens to watch all the sports you'll ever want. It's officially a no-brainer. So next time, make lunch your game-winning meal.
Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and have type 2 diabetes, $500,000 of term insurance should only cost about $100 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-381-4183. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. If you want affordable term life for you, call Big Lou at 800-381-4183. Lou is one of you and will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call Term Provider at 800-381-4183. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Call Term Provider, speak with Big Lou, and save on term life. Call 800-381-4183.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I want to be a glass countertop in a new home.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's best birthday present.
When I grow up, I want to be a football stadium.
When I grow up, I want to be a warm fleece on a cold day.
When I grow up, I want to be a fancy backsplash.
I want to be a bike that races around the country. When I grow up, I want to be a bench on a forest trail. I want to be a rocking chair on a sunny porch. I want to be a skyscraper. I want to be a
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. A public service advertisement brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We got our politically incoherent CD.
Oh, isn't that cool?
And it was signed
by the man himself.
By the man himself.
Thank you,
Yes.
Rocky Mountain Mike.
Special shout out to Rocky Mountain Mike.
Pick up your copy now.
Yes, if you're listening on talkingleft.com, you can click the link right there next to the chat room.
And if not, just Amazon.com.
Yep.
Politically Incoherent.
Yes.
Is the name of it.
Or just look in the bestsellers because it's right there at the top of the charts on
straight.
Amazon.
Dang
So
straight.
congratulations
It had better
to
be.
Rocky Mountain Mike and all of the people who helped him with that CD, including the one and only Emmy Award-winning Jim Ward.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The man.
The man himself. And big thanks to Farron Cousins. Oh, is it that time?
Yes. Remember where's the scariest place to be in between John McCain and the camera?
Yes.
It is Sunday. So where's John McCain? Is John McCain actually on TV?
Is he on TV today?
Yes.
Where is he?
He is actually on State of the Union. My poor computer.
It didn't give you your other sound effect, huh?
Oh.
Okay.
It's just not responding. There it goes.
There it goes. He is on State of the Union. And that
He's on with Ted Cruz.
That just reminds you why you're not watching corporate Sunday morning news.
Exactly. And I love my new tag. Rhetoric divorced from reality. That is what they are.
I think that should be on the Chiron on Fox all the time.
Yeah. Not fair and balanced. Rhetoric divorced from reality. And speaking of divorced from reality.
Yes, divorced from reality. Big news in Texas.
Yes.
I thought this was great news.
Everything's big in Texas.
Everything
including
is
the
big
news.
in Texas, including the news. Yes, Texas textbook publishers, which is not easy to say.
That's pretty good, though.
Yes. Have said that they will not publish fiction.
So, textbook publishers will not publish. Well, who's asking them to publish fiction? I mean, we're not talking about for an English course here, right?
No, we are talking about science education courses.
Now, Texas is a big deal in terms of textbooks in that because they're such a large purchaser that you're not going to, publishers aren't going to make textbooks just for each state. So when they come out with them, and you have a certain number to choose from. And since they sell so many to Texas, they tend to listen to what Texas says. And Texas, as you probably have sussed out, is a little nuts.
Right. Well, Texas textbook publishers, I have to say that slowly, have said that they will not put creationism in their science textbooks. This is a very big deal.
One small step for Texas, one giant leap for intelligence kind.
Yes. In fact, a lot of people are very happy about it, including Bill Nye, the science guy. Gotta love Bill Nye. He says science is the key to our future, and if you don't believe in science, then you're holding everybody back. And it's fine if you as an adult want to run around pretending or claiming that you don't believe in evolution. But if we educate a generation of people who don't believe in science, that's a recipe for disaster.
That's a recipe for the GOP. As Lee Camp called it last night, he said GOP always argues with its arch nemesis, science.
Yes. But I
said it much more funny than I did.
I think that's great news because that also shapes the textbooks, as you were saying, for the rest of the country.
Right.
And this has been a big debate. I mean, it's ridiculous.
The history books where they're making Jefferson a devout Christian and glossing over slavery and talking about states' rights in the 1800s.
Right.
I mean,
let's not get ahead of ourselves. We got creationism out of the textbooks.
We're almost back to the reality-based world.
Exactly. One step at a time. Next we can hope for accurate history, but there's a long way to go.
Well, history is up for debate. I mean,
there's a long way to go in the accurate history department and as far as what's being taught to our kids. Remember, we did just celebrate Columbus Day. We won't get into that. We only have a few minutes left in the
history
show.
textbooks that say Herbert Hoover saved us from the Great Depression.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think they'd be better off learning creation. I'm just saying.
There's actually more evidence for that one.
Yeah. And in other cool news, just because I like to talk about him, Larry Flint does not want the man who shot him executed. He is speaking out.
I asked the question, he shot Larry Flint, but did not kill Larry Flint.
Right.
Why is he charged with a capital offense?
Well,
and you had the information on that?
Yes. Joseph Paul Franklin, who shot Larry Flint back in 1978, also confessed to 13 other racial murders. He is a bad guy. He definitely deserves life in prison. But Larry Flint is speaking out against the death penalty, even as a victim of this man. Yeah. Now, granted, Larry Flint is still human. He said, I would love an hour in the room with the guy so I could inflict the same damage on him that he inflicted on me, but I do not want to see him die.
Right.
That is a true hero, in my opinion. That is somebody who really puts his money where his mouth is in many ways, but including in what he believes about the death penalty.
I agree.
So just wanted to say,
we
shout out.
We should stop hanging with places like, Iran and North Korea in terms of death penalty type cases.
Exactly.
Well, we need to wrap.
So, anyhow, big thanks to David Bender of Progressive Voices, Justin Duckham of Talk Radio News Service, Farron Cousin of the Great Ring of Fire TV and radio show. Big thanks to Nicole Sandler of RadioOrNot.com, George Rodriguez of SoFlo Radio, everybody over at We Act Radio, Alex Lawson, Kimon Freeman, Pete Callahan, Cliff Schechter, and thanks to Rocky Mountain Mike for his awesome CD and our great intro music. We'll be back next week here on Talking Left. Thanks to you. See you next week.